Right, so being 7 o'clock, I will open the meeting. Is there any bills or anything special that we have to?
Nope, but we've got Dan Deniska for Complete Streets, he's 702, so.
Okay, 7:02. They gave me two. Perfect.
Awesome. Am I all set?
You're all set.
Good evening. Thanks for fitting me in. You may remember I was before you, maybe 2 years ago now, developing a policy.
And I think we were down here then too.
So we have now, we contracted with the town and have a draft prioritization plan. So I'm just going to present quickly on that tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we met a few years ago and developed a policy working with town staff and yourselves, and then contracted with the town, as I said, in the late summer, early fall 2017. And we came out and we did some field work during the winter time. We come out and grade the sidewalks, excellent, good, fair, poor, and the ramps. We put that all into GIS and then come back, and I met with Bill. We developed a draft listing, and so that's what you have before you tonight on the Excel sheet. So we can go through project by project if you want. I have a map of them over here because it doesn't show up all that well on the screen. But there's a lot of sidewalk repair and extension around the town hall area in the center of town. And then we have some projects running sidewalk up to the CVS Harrington area and out to the bottom of the hill for the school on Mugget Hill. And then a couple bicycle lane projects on Masonic Home Road, a connection between the end of Masonic Home and 169, and then bike lanes on Stafford Street from the Oxford Town line all the way down. And then some signage along Main and North Main saying share the road, but there's not enough room for actual lanes there. It's a little narrow. We also have some extension of sidewalks kind of around the rec fields and the elementary school, and then 2 improved crossings, one right out front across to the library that could have a pedestrian activated flashing beacon, and then another one up between CVS and Harrington. And then there's 3 intersections, the main intersection right up front with when Masonic Road goes off, and then North Main at L. Stevens and North Main at H. Putnam, kind of straightening those out and making them easier for people to cross when the sidewalk is in there and better line of sight. So on the map, if you can see, there's a 6 or 7 projects listed in red. Those would kind of be phase 1, which the town could apply for when you're eligible for tier 3, which is after this gets approved by the state. So that none of them are huge in cost. They could be bundled together for the $400,000 that you could potentially be eligible for. You may not get that, but the state may say we can do 4 of the 6 and move forward from there.
So those are 1 through 7 on the sheet?
Yes.
Okay.
They're kind of grouped on the sheet for the town center projects, and then larger, longer term projects, and then the bike projects. And there is one project on the back, if you flip it over.
Are there any other groupings on the spreadsheet that make sense?
Well, there's the sidewalk extension and then the intersection realignments kind of makes sense to do all at once.
Be like a phase 2 kind of?
Yeah,
Okay.
phase 2, and then phase 3 would be anything further out, I would say. But really the numbering on the sheet isn't super important, because if the 9th one on the sheet makes sense for the town to do first and apply for funding for, you don't have to pick number 1.
So how much did you estimate, like, the phase 1 project?
Phase 1, I think it was it was, off the top of my head, it was under 400,000, so it makes sense for them all to be applied for at once.
Mhm.
The number 8, unfortunately, if you add that to the mix, which would kind of make sense with the others,
Mhm.
it goes over the 400,000, so it may make sense to apply for them and then look for funding elsewhere to supplement it, so you could do it all at once,
Mhm.
but it would really be up to how the town wanted to proceed at that point.
Did you have any sense in terms of what are the most critical projects to do first?
I think
Is
it
it safety
makes
or-
sense to repair or fix what is already out there. A lot of the ramps are not compliant. And then the pedestrian crossing out front makes sense.
They said we have some things that are there but not quite up to code.
Right. So they're not the newer ramp that have the yellow or red tag.
Okay,
The
okay,
detection
yes.
tag.
So as far as timeline goes, right now we're getting ready to get accepted to tier 3, right?
Yes, so this, we're gonna try to submit by the end of the month.
Yep.
And then the state will review it, provide, Bill with some feedback, which I'll work with him to answer whatever questions they have. And then once they approve it, the timeline should be okay to apply. There's a tier 3 funding deadline in October. So you
Yep.
would apply around September 1st
Yep.
to try to build something next spring.
All right, so then that's pretty much when the state will do their next release of this.
Yes,
complete
up to
streets program.
400,000.
Okay, gotcha.
So the max of 400?
Yes,
But you can go back.
you can. No one's done it yet, but theoretically you could apply again in a year or two.
So what do we have to do? Do we have to vote to
accept it?
submit the,
Well, I think it would help if you felt that it was,
oh, this
you
is
know,
great. This is.
made a lot of
yeah,
sense.
Thank you.
For a planning
Yeah,
board
thanks.
vote to endorse, I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's not required, but.
It's not required, but most towns have taken the vote, saying you can go ahead and submit this.
Do we have a motion to submit the proposal for funding for the
I'll make the
complete
motion.
streets?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your
Great,
time.
thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
fitting me
you.
in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
We'll be in touch.
Very nice. Can we just go to the organization a little bit early? Is it anything-
Oh, yeah, no, yeah,
Fine,
I can do that,
so-
yeah.
so Only this has to put the public hearing. Right. So, we've been pushing off this, reorganization for, just because we've been so overwhelmed, and I'm not sure we're any less overwhelmed with this meeting, but, obviously, Don wants a position, he's been coming to meetings, he's our alternate, so, I don't know if there's any discussion, but, do we have, I think we have a motion to support it, and then we meet with the joint board, right?
Correct,
So-
we have to meet with the selectmen.
So we'll vote,
It has been advertised and there was only one response, and, which is Don's.
so,
I would like to make a motion that, to present Don to the selectmen in the joint meeting that he become a regular.
Was I the one response?
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So
Aye.
we'll work to get a meeting that
Meeting,
will
joint meeting.
work, because we both have, together, we'll have to appoint you, and then that'll be until the next election, when,
Okay.
Next selectmen's meeting when they try to get it.
Yep, they have to
Mhm.
go in, okay.
so we just have to have a forum for our board, and
Right.
their board is also.
Can we jump to some of the stuff that doesn't require a public hearing?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you want to guess?
Yes.
Patsy, you're going to take a vote for chair and vice chair?
Yeah.
Oh, my fault, sorry.
That's what
Um,
we started. I just.
do we have any, do we want to talk about a chair or a vice chair? I'm happy to serve as chair for the next year if everybody wants that.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, we appoint Patty as chairperson.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I make a motion to, for Ross to be the vice chair, if he'll accept.
Yeah, I'll accept it.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
So let's get through some of these things, maybe we can fill in, we have, this is, James wants to because it's first on the list.
We have some time before the 7:20 hearing. Would you like to?
Yeah, we're looking at an A&R right now.
Sure.
It's, I don't know, the sound isn't very good.
Right, yeah, okay.
So we're looking at the Ramshorn Road, A&R.
I think at last meeting, we had that reduced frontage law.
That we wanted you to make sure, we wanted to make sure that everything was reasonable on.
Yeah, why don't we look at the plan? Do we have it there?
Yeah.
It's right over there.
So
And
we were just a little hesitant, we wanted you to
Right,
kind
sure.
of guide us to make sure
Okay.
that.
At the last meeting, he created this reduced frontage law.
Yes.
And he had this as a remainder, and I believe the purpose of this is to
Yes.
create this lot right here.
Yeah.
I think everything meets square footage and frontage.
Mhm.
So you reviewed everything and.
Yeah, that looks fine.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the A&R plan.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next slide.
Yeah, just the minor.
Oh, that's right. I think it's weird. It's weird having it right in front of my face like this.
And
And I
it's
can see it really well, no one else can, but.
Want me to sign that?
You want it?
No, go ahead.
Do you have- And the name on it.
I don't know what we had.
Thank you. We can do Hammond Hill Road.
Could we do the property solutions? plans
Just
now?
coming up.
That is the
right now,
next.
Hammond Hill
Okay,
Road.
okay.
Just coming up.
Are they here? Is that?
They are,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Chuck? You want to come up?
Sure.
These are your A&R plans?
Yeah. There are two of them. Just for the record, Chuck Scott, CFS Engineering. I'm here representing Mark LaPrade, Pratt Land Surveyors. We were working in conjunction to put together a development for rec. And this particular plan we have in front of you here is Rick LeBlanc's property is this large parcel. Jim Gagney owns this parcel over here on Hammond Hill Road. And what this is just a straight up land swap. Gagney would get this portion of land for a 25-foot strip. So it would be parcel A going to Gagney, parcel B going to Property Solutions. That would be to provide us another means of access into the property.
this parcel still has enough road frontage
It
on?
has more than enough
Okay,
road
all right.
frontage here. We
Okay.
also have road frontage down over here for
Yep,
this
I
back.
got you. All right.
So this is part one of, actually, it's
Yep.
three
Yeah,
parts.
part one, to do the straight up land swap.
Right.
And the second part, if you want to look at that one,
Is that the road? Yes, it is.
yes.
Yeah.
The second part is essentially to complete the deal between Gagny and Property Solutions and not impede upon the mortgage for the overall property. There's an additional 3+ acres of this land back here that Rick is going to give to Jim Gagny. So that's what the second plan does. And it keeps it, the mortgage free.
Right.
Missing thing.
That's it. Straight up.
And then-
Everything looks.
It does.
good on it.
Then the third part of the plan, we just submitted, Chuck submitted tonight, which is to do a reduced frontage lot, common driveway. So there'll be a public hearing on that in July.
Okay.
But, so this is in anticipation of that. plan.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this plan here, the land swap.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the second one too as well.
We just got to
We
quick look
have to
at it.
just look at it, so
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
let's
thank
just
you
sign
for your
this
presentation.
one and
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Slide it down.
Okay. I want to take this tonight.
Oh, yeah, great. Go record them.
Why not?
Yeah.
And you got up early and didn't have to wait till 8:45. It's like a birthday.
Should have been 9:45.
Well, on July
Oh,
18th,
9th.
when we're going to be before you again, is my actual birthday. So
You have to wait that night.
We'll make sure to bring some invisible balloons for
Great,
you.
thanks.
There's usually cake left over here too. so-
Yeah, I didn't see any though.
Please don't put any candles on.
How many is that?
Oh, you.
I missed that. Our fault.
No.
It's ripped it away from myself.
If you want to be the second signer, you just gotta sit close.
I know we should. There's one for now. For you? One down.
No, that's just.
So it's just the
Yeah.
same, and now this big lot, this and this combined to be 4.
So it looks, it's a nice setup.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I call it.
A lot of signing tonight.
There's always a lot of signs. Oh, you don't. Sorry.
I got
I really broke it.
lost you.
Thank you.
That's old for me.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Hope you get out here early. See you on the 18th. Sure.
Have a good night, guys.
It's just in a development group. But we don't, we're gonna have to just, it's 7:20.
Yes.
So we have the continued public hearing on the definitive subdivision on Colburn.
Anybody here for Colburn, please sign in.
Do we have anything,
Nothing.
we were gonna vote, okay.
But we didn't want to sign.
Good evening.
Good
Ernie
evening.
Mello from
Welcome.
Zero Point and Jay from DC Engineering. I don't think we have anything new to discuss on the subdivision plan. I think we were just close enough, last one just missing Bill, so.
Yep. Is there anything open or anything that? we
No,
need
I
to
think,
discuss? We were at the end last time, but I don't know, at least I felt uncomfortable voting without you present, so, I mean, we all kind of agreed to.
Mhm. That's fine. No, I looked at the plan, I looked at Mike's June 6th comment letter. Appears that everything has been addressed. As you know, this is, they've asked for a number of waivers. This will be a gravel road, so it won't be paved and built to subdivision standards, but that's okay for its intended use. So, so I would recommend that you go ahead and
So we should close
close
the
the
public
hearing,
meeting?
yes, and then vote to approve the plan.
Bill read
Okay, perfect.
Like to make
But-
motion to
but that's-
close?
wait, we, this was,
Did anything with
we
the
had some
abutter?
questions, I thought, yes, with an abutter and everything.
Did that?
That was for the site plan.
That's
That's
not,
for
that's
the-
not the
for
one
the
we're
solar.
doing.
That's for the solar.
Right.
Thank you.
That's the next public hearing.
Alrighty, I don't have anything with us.
Like to make motion, we close the public hearing on the definitive subdivision plan for this property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the plan as written,
with condition.
with the conditions written out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Might as well stay up here for the second part of this.
Excellent.
Can I quickly-
Wait, wanna grab the other A&R and we'll just get it done?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. Is this one to Brookfield Road?
We have with that, right?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Save one then.
This guy's on the screen. Okay, but which one is this and what are we doing? Bill will review it. Brookfield Road, Bill? Brookfield Road?
They did a solar farm.
Brookfield Road.
What about it?
Patty wants to review that.
Okay.
We have a second, so we're just gonna.
Sure,
look
is
at it.
anybody here? What's
Any-
the name of the plan?
It's the Energy Development Group LLC in Brookfield Road.
Okay. We could wait, maybe they'll be
Yeah,
coming
you
later.
know what, let's
or-
wait if they come in,
Okay.
because I'm just,
Okay.
you even know what what they're doing.
Yeah. But we, why
Yeah,
don't we
wait,
and see
wait,
if
I don't
they
want
come.
anybody else.
Is this a subdivision plan or is this for the solar?
This is an A&R for, it looks like solar.
It would be,
Yeah.
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 The solar's already been approved, right?
No, this has nothing to do with
Okay,
solar.
okay. But this was the property that's not the property that
I
the
thought
solar
that
is
they
going
had
on?
I thought they would.
What-
They had approved solar, I think.
Well, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
It's Energy Development Group.
Okay, is this the one that's along the Mass Pike in Brookfield
Yes.
Road?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is where the
Okay.
solar field
Yes.
is going in?
Yeah.
Has that
This is
solar
really
field?
just I believe
So,
an existing.
but the A and R is just
condition.
here to, the A and R is just here to kind of, like they said, define their property.
Yeah, so it's an existing conditions plan, there's no new division plan. And as you may be aware.
It's just kind of solidify
No, it's not, yes.
land. I've
But
never
they
seen
never
that.
filed a
They're not making
Yeah,
a
they
change.
never got locked in.
they did not get protection
on the
for the
moratorium.
moratorium.
Yeah.
They did not.
They did not
Okay,
file
okay.
the plan to do that, so this will gain them protection.
Yeah. That's all their stuff needs in before the notice went into this business.
Yes, that's correct, right, exactly.
Yep.
But I think they just needed to correct some.
Okay.
Okay, sure,
some-
absolutely.
I live on
Oh,
Colby
yeah,
Road.
I was thinking of you, I was wondering why you weren't signing.
Why don't I
Okay.
decide to wait, see if they come up?
Okay, so let me repeat.
Yeah.
So it's actually
Clarification.
Denny Stevens.
Yes, it is.
Owns this huge parcel of land off Colburn. You can't see it, it's, his driveway is behind his house, big driveway.
So maybe 40, did you go? What's? Daughter or son?
Right, being seven,
My son.
Your son? What moved him out that
But
way?
it has, it
He's here.
has a right of way to Oxford. And I meant
Place to be.
to Partridge Hill Road, and the young lady who owns the property that the right of way sits on. And was told the only thing would ever be done is plan to do something to
It's
about
a,
it.
it's a outdoor healthy lifestyle.
so being 7:30, I am continuing the public hearing for 0 Point Development for the Colburn Road Solar.
If you want, all right.
Yes.
Okay, again, for the record, Ernie Mel from 0 Point. The only change to the plan was one small issue that was yet to be worked out for the last meeting. It was something for the fire chief, and it's the turnaround right before the gate, which they wanted. There was a turnaround that was slightly further south, a little further away from the gate than the fire chief would like, so we're adding the proposed turnaround right next to the gate, so that's really the only open technical thing. There's obviously the other issue with the right-of-way and the utility easement. We're aware of the letter that was sent in by one of the abutters on Partridge Hill Road with their objections and concerns regarding our rights to the Stevens family to their rights to the easement and the right-of-way, which we responded with a letter from our legal counsel that refutes that. Sure, Bill, you may have had a
Before-
chance to read it.
Yeah, before we get to that, Ernie, on Mike Andrade's review comment letter dated June 6th, comment 36. I think just this one question for the board, Mike is asking. He states, the revised plans still show no proposed screening in this area or anywhere else on the project. GEI defers any further discussion regarding this comment to the planning board. So, Ernie, I wonder if you could address for Jay the lack of screening for this particular project. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, we're so far back from anything. There's so much existing vegetation. You know, this whole edge here this is a whole swamp through here. This goes back hundreds of feet. And the road is way down here. This side on Partridge Hill Road, houses are, as you can see, the houses are up front, and the tree line is way down here, which, you know, granted, that's on their property. But there's, I think there was 400 feet.
Yeah, it was
from, basically from the tree line.
400 and 500 feet.
Yeah, there was 400 feet or more to our property line, that we still left 10 feet of, you know, of trees. And then from the 10-foot mark to the fence mark, which is probably another 100 feet, we're only taking the tops off.
Mhm.
So there's gonna be no visibility at all
I see.
to see up there. And it goes up a hill, so there's, I mean, it'd be kind of crazy to have a plan.
Okay.
Anything up there, really. Wouldn't know, you'd be able to see the plantings.
Okay.
And we had no request from the abutters for anything? I don't recall
Looking for
any.
the plantings.
There was issues with screening of the right equipment in the right of way, which is
Right.
near
The box,
near
is
the
that the
home,
box
the
that you're
box,
talking about?
Right,
which we talked about last meeting.
but, okay, we'll get to
Yep,
that in a
yep.
sec, but as far as the screening over there, nobody has,
I don't recall anything.
okay.
No, I don't recall that coming up either, but I just
I
wanted to
didn't
bring it
either,
to
but I
your
wanted to
attention.
make sure,
Right.
okay.
I think their main issue was the right-of-way thing.
Okay, now we can.
So on the right-of-way issue, earlier, I think on Monday, we received an email from a Mr. Dunkerton, who is an abutter to the easement, who raised, that's the pages 3 and 4 of that handout, who raised a number of, I guess I'd call them legal concerns about the ability of the easement to accommodate the intended use. So the attorney for the applicant, George Kuritsi, provided a thorough rebuttal, I think, or at least he tried to rebut the issues that were raised by Mr. Dunkerton. And, you know, it's a legal type of analysis. You know, I don't know whether, you know, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you whether it's correct or not, but it seems like he went point by point and addressed the concerns of the abutter. So the question would be whether you would want to accept this response, or whether you would want to have counsel sort of address the issue of the easement.
So if this is, say there is an issue there, and they go ahead and spend all this money to do all of this, do the plans and everything else, and then there's an issue, then it's really on the applicant to take the huge loss. I don't think that we can, I don't think we should use kind of dig deeper into this, because I don't think we have a will to do that, if that makes sense. And again, if there's an issue and you guys are doing what you aren't supposed to be doing, then the lawyers will come and shut you down, and you invested all this time and money for
And I
nothing.
believe that,
So-
yeah, that is the option of going to court. You know, I don't know if that's even in the planning board's, like you said.
That's,
rights to
I mean, that's
rule on
all,
that type
I mean,
of
we have
legal
to,
stuff.
And Bill, in your past experience, you've seen these right-of-ways, you've seen these easements, and from what you said in previous meetings, if I recall, this is all legal and this is all as it should be, and they're doing exactly what that easement was actually designed to do.
I believe so.
Okay. Then I would accept that and say, I would say that they're within their rights.
Do you want to address the screening issue then?
you guys kind of work that out a little bit.
Well, the abutter at 78 Partridge Hill Road, who owns a property with the right-of-way, we spoke after our last meeting. She's had my contact information for quite some time. I asked her to please reach out to me. I never received a call from her to go over there. We're still obviously open to looking at it after construction. So if the board cares to put a condition stating that we'll revisit the area to look for screening.
So
The
if
thing
she
is, I will
wants-
need her permission.
So
as we discussed.
if she wants a couple of trees or shrubs or
Yes.
whatever on her property, on the property within the legal, I know you have legal limits with the state guidelines, or like within the distance, you'll work to, kind of appease the situation as much as you can.
Yes.
Um,
Reasonably,
know.
of course.
Right.
I just don't want to be, held to what the property
You wanna put
owner
a
may
rare
think is
species of
reasonable.
trees,
Yeah.
of tree. I mean, on record, within reason, some screening that's in accordance with whatever guidelines, standard practice, best practice, whatever it is, within distance of the box, just to kind of protect her property as much as you can.
Well, the abutter is here. I
Right.
would
Yeah.
want to probably get her opinion on record.
Can I just ask a question first, though? So through the right-of-way, how wide is that right-of-way?
20 feet.
It's 20 feet. And would the box go in the middle, or are you pushing it off to the side?
It's gonna go to one, so National Grid will have the jurisdiction to mandate where it's actually gonna be located. But it will be to one side because they have to have access to it, and there's certain areas that can't be blocked, especially in front of it. So we touched on this a little bit, which is the reason why we need the landowner's permission, because the plantings due to the room will have to be pushed off of the right-of-way, therefore being on her property, which we will need her permission to plant them there. But we can't plant them specifically in the right-of-way, they're gonna have to be off.
Is this right-of-way right up against the property line, or is it?
Yes.
It is right against the property, and is it wooded between that property, between the right-of-way and the neighboring adjacent lot? Is
Right
there-
now, there's there's a tree line between them. There's
Okay.
some distance of wooded area. Some of those trees are gonna have to come down as part of the clearing for the electrical to run in there. We still think there'll be existing trees up. There certainly will be on the other landowner's side. But again, that's why I think it would be beneficial to look at it post-construction when things are done, to look and see if there's a gap between there that's very visible. We would be okay planting a few arborvitaes there to screen the equipment pad.
Is it possible to move the box further in, the lot into the tree line so that it wouldn't be visible?
It's pretty open all the way.
Yeah, it's gonna need to be open, and the thing is National Grid wants it as close as they can to the public way, so they can drive, park a car, get out, do any maintenance that's necessary. They don't want it all the way back in the middle, like hundreds of feet off the road.
Is it possible to ask them about that issue to see whether they would consent to?
Yeah, again, I
move it?
think they're gonna be the ones that dictate where it goes.
Mhm.
We can certainly try to push them in one way or another, but I can't say specifically that they'll accept a different location
Mhm.
other than what we have laid out on the plan.
Right. So how often do these boxes get worked on?
Maintenance, unless something goes wrong, not often. The maintenance is more typically like at the equipment pad that we have that will be like the inverters and the transformer for the actual array, which will be located in the backland within the fence line.
Mhm.
These pieces of equipment are basically, they're in case of emergencies. It's basically a circuit breaker.
So it's just a disconnect.
Yeah.
So it's-
So it would seem like it wouldn't be that difficult for National Grid to agree to, would have to,
They
go
just
down
have their own
easement ways.
regulations, and it's
Right.
something,
Yeah, they're pretty
depending
strict
on the
on how they-
engineer and the supervisor that does the work,
Mhm.
they come out and look at it. And I
Yeah.
can see them saying, why would we put it back there when we can put it
Would it be
10 feet off
possible
the road?
for them to contact the planning office?
They're gonna be concerned with, like, if something blows in the winter time and they have to get to it, they're not gonna wanna have to, plow or snow blow 100 feet into the field to get to it. They're gonna
Mhm.
access
How
it.
low can you get closer to the tree line than the property line? Instead of-
Yeah, side to side, it can.
Side to side,
probably
as
shoot
far away from
Yeah.
as far as
the main
off
piece
the
of property
street.
as you get it as close to the edge as possible.
Yeah.
And there's only like 20 feet to
It's-
move it full, so it's
yeah.
not
Well,
like, it's not like you can really
Yeah.
move it many places.
And I'm not sure.
20 feet is a big difference if it's in the middle of a lawn or if it's up against a tree. Or if it's-
Ernie, what's the size of the box?
The box is, width-wise, is probably 2 to 4 feet. There's a
Okay.
bunch of different models
Yeah.
that you can come in, but I'd say a rough estimate, it's not gonna be any less than 2 feet, and it's not gonna be any deeper than 4 feet. It's just you start playing around with, if you face it this way, you have to have that whole area open. So you're relying on trees that would have to be planted on the front of it and the existing trees behind it. Or if you flip it around and bring it closer to the abutter's home and face it the other way, now you're relying on trees that may not be on her property that would have to get planted there because everything in front of it facing the other way is gonna be cut down. So it's kind of a tough situation, but we can, that's why, again, I think it just is one of those things you have to look at when it's done, see where there's holes and try to patch them.
Ernie, do you know what the distance is that's required for the front of the box? Is it 3 feet, is it 6 feet?
It's 15 feet.
It's 15 feet?
Yeah, it's 15 feet.
Okay. So if it was perpendicular to the street, the back was up against the trees, or 15 feet in, I don't know, you'll have to work with the landowners.
So pretty much National Grid is gonna come in and put it where it's best most, whether you
Whether-
want something or not. They're gonna
Best
do
suited for them.
what's best for them, and that's just how it's gonna be. And then you guys will do your best to work with the abutter to make it all kinda, be better. Okay, so, do we need to?
Ask any questions?
Any questions?
Do you want to, go ahead, speak up.
Sure, do you need to come up or?
Yes,
Whatever.
Yeah, come on up.
name, address, the road.
Michelle McAfee at 78 Procedural Road. So my thing now is I understand that there's the right of way, and I've called so many attorneys, and I'm not in a state for myself being like a 30-year-old being able to spend thousands of dollars to look further into this. So when it's likely accurate, right? So I'm at the point now where I understand the project and I understand the use of the right-of-way. my issue now, and actually, we did speak at the last meeting to talk about, you know, at the very end of things, you know, we'll be in person to actually see what we're working with, because the aerial view or the bird's eye view or whatnot doesn't give a clear depiction, in my opinion, because when you're there in person, it doesn't seem like much distance at all to where I park. So my question, I was waiting to speak with you folks, and I've just had I work crazy hours, so I haven't even had a chance. I'm barely home when it's light out. So my question to the planning board is, I would really love to have final answers or like depiction on this before it's approved as far as the box goes. The box is my only issue at this point. You know, whether it be to bring my property value down, or I don't plan on moving. That's I did an addition. That's where I want to be with my family. But just for future selling purposes, all of this stuff playing in. Again, I know that the right-of-way is also owned by, you know, Mr. Stevens, but I'm paying property tax still on that part, you know, and for that a permanent fixture to be there is really challenging for me to swallow, you know. And you know, when Ernest and I spoke the last time, there wasn't like clear guidelines, or we weren't sure if the property line was even, you know, fully marked for us to see at this point. So I'm wondering, or I'm asking for maybe a little bit more time to get all of those answers in play before this piece is approved and moved forward with, just as to where exactly the box will be. And we need clear markings of the property lines and the 20 feet, where it starts, where it ends. I'm wondering, for my sake, if we could just if I could have a little bit more time before this is officially locked in stone, to get all of this cleared away, to make sure that it isn't so unduly burdensome for my property that I'm paying for. And
as much as we would love to accommodate you, legally, I don't know that we can, because National Grid has the right to put that box where they feel that it is best suited. So at this point, they have done everything we've asked of them, even waited a meeting when they came with a present all wrapped in fold, and now they came yet again here in order to answer all of our questions and put us at ease. So as much as I would love, because I don't blame you, if it was my property, I'd want to know where this thing was going. I'd want to know exactly where the tree lines were, where the lines were. I would absolutely want to know what it was going to look like in the end. But unfortunately, legally, because it is a right-of-way, National Grid has the right to stick it wherever they want, and so we can't stop them.
But here's my thing, where it's part of it, because of the clearance and because of the way the door is open, part of it will be on my property.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it okay for these answers, these to be left unanswered with it being finally approved? You know what I mean? And,
I do.
And
because
the
it's
other
a right
thing,
of way.
but part of it will be intruding past the 20 foot from what they're explaining.
The only thing that's going to be on your property is the plantings, which you will have control over, because you'll be able to tell them that you don't want this or you do want this, and as long as it's within reason. But as far as the actual project goes, that strictly is on the right of way, that although is on your property, is not really your property.
The doors opening
Yeah.
aren't gonna go. The
Yeah,
service workers,
exactly.
when they come to service it, they won't be on they can't legally be on your property. It has to,
Be on the right of way.
it has to be on the right of way. And
Mhm.
they couldn't technically open the doors and have the door be on your property, and the service workers can't be on your property to service, like, that won't.
And
but
another concern I
technically-
have is like, and this is why I was hoping to be able to have some time to finalize it, is wherever it might be in that space, like, I plow that whole side yard, because again, as I was mentioning, the way the street is, that's where my parking is in the winter. And I'm just like, there's that concern, you know, aside from my personal, like, I plow like right up to there. So I don't know if that's a useful placement. If, you know, if there needs to be access and stuff, like in the winter, that's a terrible spot. I'm just saying that for their sake, you know. I just don't know if there's any other way to do this box. I mean, I'm sure there's placement there because I know Partridge Hill has the access, but I mean, there's gotta be there's gotta be other solutions or other options, and this just might be the least money for them.
It's not that, it's that Danny doesn't own another easement onto Partridge Hill. If he owned another easement that wasn't on your property, I have no doubt he would take it in a heartbeat. His best bet would be to go on vacant land. But his only easement, the only place he owns is on your property. And that is extremely unfortunate, and you can't know how much I feel for you. But he has no other options. And legally, we're at this point where, again, they've done everything we've asked of them. Legally, he owns the property. We have to say yes, even if we wanted to say no, even if we thought that it was an awful idea. We only can review site plans, and we have to follow the legalities of the situation, not the court of public opinion. And I do feel for you.
And we get this all the time with solar farms and everything else like this. It kind of, we have to just kind of go by the rules. And honestly, at the last meeting, we were ready to approve this, and we just extended it by chance because our planner wasn't here, and just me as chair, I feel uncomfortable approving something this big without having him going, yeah, we're good, you're good to go. We don't want lawsuits. We don't want questions. We don't want to look like we're doing something incorrect. So I feel very bad. It kind of is what it is, and National Grid is even out of their control, and it's clearly out of our control. And hopefully everything, the placement is to your advantage, just by coincidence, if that makes sense. And again, we do have, on video, on record, that they will, as long as you're not like, crazy extravagant, to do a couple of plantings to block it. Some pretty trees that will improve the value of your property versus, so we're kind of.
And I mean, the only other thing, I don't know if this is part of the planning board or if it's another department within the town hall. Because I am paying property tax on that space, is that, can that be reduced?
I don't know, talk to the assessor. That's
that's
totally out of
Oh,
our.
that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, go to the assessor, and she's wonderful, and she'll, guide you in all the right directions.
Okay, and I'm, now that, I've been able to speak to you a little bit further, we will get together, when my schedule allows. I'm sure there's still time before that part will even be touched, but I would like clear guidelines where the 20-foot starts and stops, and I feel like that's on them. So that's what I would ask, is just to make sure that there are clear markers, so that way we know exactly what we're looking at.
I'm sure when you're cutting down trees, there'll be clear markers, so you don't.
Yeah, exactly. And then just for the sake of the placement of the box, I do plow there. I don't know how that's gonna work, so we'll just have to talk about all that.
I took a ride out there, and it appeared that, most of that is wooded right now, so I don't know if she's plowing that area, right where we're talking
So it's
about.
kind of going in the woods.
Up into the yard.
You know where everything is until you actually get it surveyed. So it could be an area that you may not, it may be different than what you're thinking it's gonna be.
And we'll once it's clearly marked, we'll be able to figure that out, but I just wanna make sure that it's accurate,
Absolutely.
You definitely work with their needs. They'll help you out. It's in their best interest to make sure that you're at least happier.
Is the ground, is it marked? Have you surveyed the property?
Yeah, it's been surveyed.
It's been surveyed, you've done that, right?
Yeah.
Are
And
there
that right away
markers?
is marked? Is it?
There's a
according to
stone wall that runs basically on it's
the
hard to
property line?
see, because it's wooded. It's actually a
Okay.
junk car, right there with trees growing through it. So,
Okay. But it is a stone wall.
it's in that vicinity, yeah. But
So-
there's a drill hole at the end of the wall. I mean, my partner
Did you
did the
find
survey.
iron stakes or anything?
I did, my partner did the survey, so
Okay.
I wasn't out there.
Okay.
But, there's a stone wall that's showing the drill hole right at the beginning.
And the stone wall is on the other side of the right of what is on, is
It's
the
on
actual
the far
divider.
side.
So the property line
So
is-
that's the true cutoff.
That's the
between-
property line, and then the 20-foot comes in from that towards her property,
That's the
into
other
her
side, so,
property.
so do you know where that wall is?
Yeah, and Mr. Dunkerton next to me, he seems to think that he has some space after that. So that's why I'm confused, because I don't know the clear lines,
You might want to talk to the assessor too, because she can give you a better picture of where the lines are.
And she has a good way of
Yes,
explaining
she does.
how the lines and the, so that's probably you're a good trip for, if you have, a call or a visit to.
There's basically, there's a drill hole at the beginning. There was an iron pin found there, another pin found at the end. So I mean, there's a line that, we've already surveyed and located. From this line, it comes down 20 feet towards her house.
That solid line there, is that like the stone wall?
Yeah.
That's the property line.
I mean, I'm assuming it's,
I think that's the probably
yeah,
one.
there's a stone wall that goes from this pin to this drill hole.
Okay, so that would be the property line,
And
and
then
the
it goes
20 feet
20
comes
feet
in.
Where's the box, that little square up there, is that where?
Box is gonna be somewhere, and that's actually bigger than, because that's 20 feet wide, there's only a few feet shown, it's probably half of that size.
So it looks like, it might not be as bad as you
Mhm.
think it might be.
Yeah.
I think that you're
Yeah.
envisioning this big, ugly, huge building size box. You might not even notice that it's there. And if you're already plowing and they're saying that there's trees there,
Mhm.
then
Not
you
plowing.
are probably off a little bit. It's probably not quite.
Yeah.
And I do believe, like, go to the assessor and she'll pull up some stuff for you and
Okay.
maybe ease your mind a little bit
Mhm.
and help you
Okay.
sleep at night a little bit. I
Yeah.
think it might not be as bad as.
Does the board have an issue if I run upstairs and
Oh.
answer
Yeah.
from here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are we all set with plans for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
At this point, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So do we want to make a motion with conditions standard conditions to?
So is there a decommissioning bond on this?
It's
Yes.
already, it's already calculated.
Yes.
And, okay, and is this property in 61A currently? It is currently in 61A.
Not that huge. There's a,
The piece where the solar
correct.
is in 61A or is not in
I took
61A?
it out last year.
So, okay,
It's
so
already-
have the back taxes been paid and all that taken
I
care of?
believe we'll still have to go through the chair respectively. I think we'll still have to go through the process of the board of selectmen waiving their right of first refusal.
Okay.
But he's elected to remove for the next fiscal year, which I believe just started, 15 acres of the property from chapter 61A.
Okay.
So the election has been made, but I believe the town has a year from when the
Okay.
end of chapter land
Mhm.
starts for their right of first refusal, so we were still planning to go through the process of having the board of selectmen waive that right of first refusal.
I think it's 120 days.
Okay.
120 years, which is
And-
Yeah,
over
and
120
there's
now,
a
right?
5-year rollback of taxes, so you probably have to pay 4 years of back taxes.
On-
4 or 5 years, yes.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
Should the plan be approved before that's paid, or does that have to be?
No, well, there's
or-
no
Standard,
bid.
Noted
we
in it.
already have added that as a standard
Okay.
condition,
Right.
we always,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
we changed that a while ago to
Okay.
do that.
Yep. Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan with these stipulations that Bill put down.
As well as compromise with the abutting neighbor, the plantings
Yes.
within reason.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
So this is continued.
So now we're accepting.
You're okay with the end of it, right?
Just mention it.
We have a continued public hearing scheduled for 7:40 for Curtis Hill Estates. And that has been, there's been a request for a continuance to August 8th, 2018.
Let's make a motion to continue to August 8th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So, yes.
At 7:55.
Being 7:55, we have a continued public hearing for Otis Land Management LLC, the site plan application for 100 Sturbridge Road. Is there a new Graves report? Yep.
Frank said something about dropping off an additional $5,000 or something.
Yeah, just to cover the one graves in the future. Yeah,
So I can do that, make it up to the town account.
Yep, yep. Thank you for that.
You always take money. Great. Bill, do you want to go through?
Yeah, I
I don't know if
think,
it's actually, is there actually any sort of a presentation? I mean, it's really,
I don't, if Ralph would like to make one, we could do that.
do you
first.
want to, do you want to make a presentation now, or?
Ralph, do you want to present where we're at right now?
I mean, I can.
It's up to you.
Jay just ran upstairs. Basically, we took the plan, we did all the graves peer review, fixed everything on it, sent it back to him. He sent us back a comment saying that everything was all set at this point. So we're just here tonight to see if we can get it approved.
Perfect.
I mean, I don't know if you want me to put it up on the board. If you have any questions, I can lay it on the thing there, whatever you want to do.
So we'll have Bill go through anything that we need to be aware of, and
Yeah.
then we can go from there?
Yeah, there seem to be a couple of issues that are still left to be resolved. I'm referring to Mike Andre's letter of June 20th, which is today. Item number 3 on page 1. The comment is that it was discussed at the pre-application meeting that the site has multiple buildings and uses, and the project must comply with the bylaw frontage and area requirements or the functional equivalent thereof. And then the update is that the engineer responds that the project complies with the requirements of the bylaw. RGE recommends that as the comment originated with the zoning enforcement officer, that it be reviewed again for compliance. So since Kurt isn't here, I think he should have a chance to look at this one more time to make sure that it complies.
What was that? I'm sorry, sir.
On the June 20 letter?
Yeah.
What
Item
number was that?
3. Mike Andrade is recommending that Kurt Meskis review the plan for compliance with zoning because he's not sure that you met this functional equivalent requirement.
Meaning what?
You have to have each use either be on a separate lot that meets all of the zoning requirements, or you have sufficient land that you could meet the requirements. You have a functional equivalent of what's required for the 4 lots. So Mike isn't clear that you've met that standard yet. And then there's another comment further on which sort of gets to that as well. Under comment 4, let's see. So I think this has to do with some of the parking issues. Mike's last sentence says, though it appears that sufficient width exists for the trucks to maneuver in and out of the bulk plant, Graves Engineering believes that it is important to separate the traffic in and out of the bulk plant and the parked vehicles throughout the existing southerly parking lots. So,
I got a pen right here, want me to
letter?
Yeah.
So that Ralph can
Yeah,
follow.
absolutely.
So, Mike is concerned about the separation of the trucks and he's recommending some kind of
Because I met with Kurt and the deputy fire chief, and, I mean, they didn't see any issues with what we had. We described the water, we described how we were gonna put the hydrants. I walked it with the deputy chief as far as getting fire trucks in there and everything. We met out on the site.
Well, Bill, you think as for a possible remedy to ease Mike, maybe some paintings on the asphalt or just signage? It seems like that's what he was getting at, right? For the
I think
traffic
he's
flow?
looking more for a hard separation rather than just signage.
Maybe signage then? Well,
More than just signage. I think he's looking for a hard separation.
Like where? I mean, where are we talking on this
Oh,
plan?
so it'd be islands then,
Something like that, right?
as opposed to where you park the the car carriers are parked, and I guess where the trucks are gonna be coming in and out. I think that's what he's getting at.
Well, we're coming in here
Right.
on the road,
Yeah.
and then we're veering off right. The car carriers all parked right in here.
Okay.
Okay, this is already talked to with the fire department
Okay.
as far as being the roadway in and out.
Okay.
So, we had talked about, Norman Brodeur coming out to stripe all this
Yeah.
based on, the striping that was there to make it all fresh.
Correct.
Then the fire department said if they needed anything else, fire lane put in or whatever, but that's just painting on the asphalt.
Okay.
There's really nowhere, because this is just one big parking lot out here, for the car carriers, so there's really nowhere to put a berm or anything else. We're gonna have berm over here and some grassed in areas here for the cars and everything. But this is what I walked with the deputy fire chief. And he liked it, he said he could get his ladder truck in there and everything.
Did you see the
And that
shed?
was with,
It's the new one?
Yeah, it was just a couple of
Today's?
things.
Yeah, so we're talking about item 4,
Yeah.
as far as.
Yeah, so this, I mean, you can see I put a line here. That's where the car carrier angled parking is now.
Yep.
They're parking, on angles like this and like this. And there's literally like 40 feet from the edge of the striping to the curb, which, normal roadway is only 24 feet. So I mean, it's huge back here. And these turn templates are the Charlton fire truck. So I mean, it clearly gets in here. This turn is, there's 50 feet here from the garage to the curb. Same thing pulling out of here. There's like 60 feet from the beginning of the, it might look small on paper, but if you go out there, I mean, it's huge. You got already tractor trailers driving around in here without a problem.
car carriers.
Car carriers, so I
Though
mean,
it appears that sufficient width exists for the trucks to maneuver in and out. GEI believes that it is important to separate the traffic in and out of the bulk plant and the parked vehicles throughout the existing southerly parking lots. So,
Which we have. See, that's why we're coming in here, this is all, you know what I mean? We do have separation, they're all coming around here, and then this is just the roadway. This is always a common roadway, all the way back, even when we're hauling dirt out of there, whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah, so
From day one.
they'll drive in here, then they'll turn into the site, they'll drive all around here, around the back of the buildings, come into the oil tanks here. I mean, that's a trailer truck showing, that's how small it looks, on the site, and then that's the scale. So then they'll basically pull out, turn, continue on right back on up the same road. And again, this isn't public, but it's just random people coming in and out, don't know where they're going. Either his drivers that are doing this every single day.
so Mike
Well,
wants something
unfortunately,
physical. So
this
Mike-
just came in today,
Yeah.
and Mike couldn't be here, he was in an accident last week, so,
Kurt hasn't
I-
had a chance to review this
Kurt's
evening?
off this week.
Yeah,
So he hasn't seen this letter
he hasn't
either.
seen this letter.
Right. So, I think Mike, would be helpful if Mike were here to,
And Kurt.
to, address the issue in more detail than I can, but he seemed to feel that it was an important issue. So maybe he can,
I mean, would that be
Ralph and-
sufficient though to not pass this, because I'm trying to run
mhm.
concurrent with the selectmen's meeting and everything else.
Right.
They're holding up licenses, their next meeting is July, I gotta get this thing approved
Mhm.
to get before them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you could,
The
Make
deputy
it a
fire chief
condition
dropped
if you
off
want.
the license today.
I mean, I have no problem making a condition that upon Kurt's, Kurt reviewing it things,
Mhm.
but, I mean, what if there's a disagreement between the engineers saying, and Mike saying that you need to have a physical
Mhm.
berm in there or something, like, what is?
I don't understand, where would we put a berm? I don't understand.
And we're using the word berm, we don't know, because
Right.
I read the sentence, so it appears as sufficient, he thinks that it's important to separate the traffic, in and out, and within the parking. I haven't been
not
up there.
sure
Is
where-
it the purpose of the car carriers to drive in and drive out and have to back up, right?
Right. Like
So that's why,
everybody.
that's why there's no, they would, theory not show a curb.
Right, any
Yeah.
commercial, you know what I mean, you only
Yeah,
back
that's why they
up
park
as
at
far
angles.
as you
Yeah.
ever need to pull forward. This all has to be plowed, you know what I mean? So, it wouldn't make sense to even put a berm down here, and it only get ripped out
They wouldn't be able
anyways.
to drive over the berm.
And it's 40 feet wide, and
The
like,
drive aisle is 40 feet wide.
right, and like Jay said, roads are only 24. So we got ample width. I mean, if they want me to stripe this with, you know what I mean, with a stripe down the middle and put some signage, that's what we had talked about with Deputy Chief Quintero. As far as, once it's all in place, like, we're coming in here, we're putting a hydrant here, we're putting a hydrant out there, we're gonna put some poles over here. That's all stuff that we're gonna work with them on, what they want for signage in front of it, you know what I mean? This thing's all been striped, approved. We've been digging dirt out of here for 20 years now, coming in and out of here, not one accident, you know what I mean?
What is
Very
the-
safe.
What does the board think about the separation and everything?
Well, it
get
calls for
rest-
markings or a rumble strip or, a concrete delineation is what they're asking for.
No, that's what I assumed, they wanted the separation, but what does the board think about kind of,
Through the chair, I have a question. That 40-foot, do you have traffic going both directions?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe that's what Mike's thinking about.
But again, a road's only 24 feet.
So
And you
24 and
got-
24 would be 48?
No, 24 total.
Right. For,
This is 40 total. A roadway is typically 24 feet. And
12
this-
feet on each
12
lane.
feet to the center. This is
12
20 feet
feet
to
on
the
the,
center.
okay.
And we got 40 feet, so we got plenty of room,
It's huge out there, it's
you
not.
know? I mean, go ahead. I'm
I mean, we
sorry.
don't have any issue, you don't have a problem, I don't think Mike has any suggestions. I mean, he's just saying to discuss it. I can talk to him, and if he has a suggestion, we can, I don't think you're gonna say no. I mean, we'll work it out or see what he needs.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
not-
stripe it up, I'll put, you
I don't
know what
want
I
to
mean?
not approve if it's something that it's really just a matter of opinion. But
separate the traffic.
Ross,
Yeah.
you know more about the trucking part of it. Like,
Yeah.
do you, like, use your expertise and kind of chime in
I
on
think
this.
that's kind of what I asked Ralph the purpose of with the car carriers, to pull in and pull out. If there was a island or a berm there, I think it defeat the purpose of a flow of the traffic
Exactly.
for that use of that property right now.
Right, because they drive right through, these are double lanes, so, you know what I mean, they're always driving through the one lane to get to the front lane.
And that's why I had asked Bill what Mike was getting at, would it be painting or signage?
Well, I'll tell you too, I was at Atlas Distribution yesterday, and they have a ton of big trucks
Yeah.
coming in and going out, and they don't have anything. They just, their drivers know that this way goes this way and this way goes that way. So maybe to satisfy this, we have you guys paint out the lines.
Yes.
But I think that should be enough,
Yeah, I don't
because
think
this
any-
area
I
is.
think striping would be.
Yes.
Unless then, anybody else want to?
Between the parking area and the travel area is what he's looking for.
Yeah, I'll stripe that, I'll have Norman Bordeaux put down a double stripe, you know what I mean, to show, anybody coming in stays to the right, anybody going out stays
And
to
again,
the
they're all your
left.
drivers too,
Right.
so you don't have somebody who has no clue where they're going in the
Right.
first place, that's gonna cause any sort of accidents or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the only thing that's open is Kurt's kind of like review of number 3, right? That
And I think,
The,
comment 5 is somewhat similar. This has to do with the internal lot lines. While the site plan still shows when the applicant's intent is unclear on this topic, the engineer who was Jay responds that the applicant prefers leaving the lot lines for lease purposes. So the eye defers to the planning board.
I can expand a little on that. If Kurt decides that they have to be removed, we can just do an 81X plan and just eliminate the lot lines. I mean, he's the owner of all the lots now, so technically, the lots line would be merged, but if it needs to be done on a plan, it's not a problem to just do that.
So it sounds good.
Yeah, it seems like that'd be a
With
hold-up
Kurt's
for-
okay. I hate to hold us up to the next,
Right.
to the next meeting if we're just waiting for Kurt to kind of give his okay, and I know you'll work with them to make everything.
And I did meet with Kurt Meskis and Deputy Chief Cantera in Kurt's office. I made an appointment, last week, and walked through all this stuff. Then I met with Deputy Chief Cantera on the site. We laid out the hydrants, we walked the whole property. He wanted to feel comfortable because he had never been back there, 30 years in Southbridge. He's like, wow, this place is really big back here, you wouldn't think about it. Here's car carriers, and we got, 20 of them, and there's, still ample room, you know what I mean? Nobody's, you know what I mean? So,
I don't think we got any comment from the fire chief, did we, from the fire department, on that meeting, whether they're okay?
and if I may say, they did drop off signed license. I don't have it in my truck, but they did drop it off at the selectmen's meeting today. I am going to meet with her tomorrow, if I get approved tonight, to make a July meeting with them. So they did sign off on the both
So
plant. and all
fire
that.
signed off?
Yes.
So
There is a fire license.
Can we just add that as a kind of a condition that there's a fire sign off?
Yeah.
I believe you, but I
I'll
just.
bring
wanna
in
get
a copy, I'll give it to Jane tomorrow, if she'd like, you know what I mean, of the
so
license.
It's just, it covers us.
Yeah, just, yeah, so do we,
Application, actually, that the selectmen grant the license, so the fire chief just approves it,
so.
that they're okay with it.
Do we want to make a motion to close? Oh, I'm sorry, is there any public comment before we close the hearing?
How you doing?
Good.
Good, thank you.
So.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I thought it was slower.
I think I got a couple of other comments.
Yeah, right. I was going through the
Right.
comments here. We have number 13.
Right. So number 9, again, is,
Okay.
a question regarding the lot lines and the setbacks and things of that sort. So that's similar to number 5, I think. Number 10, he's saying no landscaping plan was provided or proposed. GEI understands the applicant is requesting a waiver from providing landscaping, citing the remote nature of the site from the public way. And then leaving it up to the planning board to
Yeah.
comment on that. You okay? Okay.
That was fine.
Number 12, it's been acknowledged. Number 13, I think you were on the lighting, you had a comment from Mike later today about the lighting.
Yeah, so I
It's
did,
okay.
we'll have the final issue for construction set.
Right.
But I did send him, it just was a note on the detail. It
So-
was the remaining comments.
So Mike and Jay had a comment later in the day regarding number 13, so that's been resolved.
And the other 32 with the drainage.
And the drainage stuff, right. And number 16, building elevation plans were not received. The engineer understands that building elevations will be submitted to the planning board at the next scheduled hearing. Do you have anything like that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go over that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, right now, the plan is to do the bulk plan and the propane at this point, and then do the buildings kind of like in like phase 2. So again, we requested just, come back to the board with the elevation plans before the building permit will be both of those. Just,
Okay.
we're getting in the time of year where he needs to get the oil tank going and.
The elevations are for the garages.
Please,
Yeah.
Just get that.
Is this doesn't cover that?
I explained.
They haven't provided it.
I do have to roll on the plans,
Okay.
regarding these buildings are to be, done in the second phase. It's on now, it's right there. Building and utility associated with them. Our plan for phase 2, phase 1 consists of a parking lot, creating oil, propane, tank installation.
So you were asking for approval of just phase 1 tonight or both phases?
The only difference would be the 2 buildings.
So the site plan won't change in the next phase?
Right, it would
It's
just need to come back, get the elevation plans of what you have to do.
Okay, okay, so the site plan, you don't anticipate changing. You'd have to come back.
Right.
Right, for any little approved
Yeah.
differences.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if we
Submit that.
change the footprint size or anything, we'll give you a revised.
Okay, okay. Board okay with that then?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think the other engineering and drainage issues have been resolved.
What, 18?
18?
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah, traffic report. I think staff reviewed it and felt that a traffic report wasn't necessary for this level of traffic, isn't sufficient really to make much of an effect on Route 20. But if you feel a traffic study would be necessary, you could require it, but I don't think, well, what's the trip generation from this kind of facility? How many trucks a day?
Well, probably 10 trucks, and they do 2 loads a day, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you 20 trucks, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we really move more than that each day in dirt, just to clear out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the gravel storage area that we've had there in the past.
Mhm.
So, I
So
mean,
based on that
it really
trip
doesn't
generation,
affect
okay,
anything, you know what I mean?
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And 28.
Okay,
No,
that's
number-
it then, I think.
The number 28, the swale sizing calculation must be revised, you guys will.
Yeah, I already worked that out with Mike today.
Is there be a concern?
I think,
Piping size?
pipe sizes. Yeah, that was another one that we did. So there was like 4 drainage issues and I still had it. I made some quick revisions and emailed them and so on.
So you got the original letter today?
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
you
response with the-
you responded
Yeah.
back? And
And
then
we got an email
Okay,
saying
I
that
just
it's
wanted to-
all
all your emails were back and forth
Yeah.
today. And
Frantic,
I believe that most of, if not all of the stormwater and
Yeah.
chemical engineering issues have been addressed.
Exactly.
All right, now we ready to close this?
Now I'm making sure to close the public hearing.
Is there any other comments from the
Any
public?
comments from the public now after?
Good.
I'll make a,
Make a
I'll
motion.
revisit my motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I make, oh, go ahead, Julie.
No, I was just saying.
Do we have a motion to accept the plan, approve the plan with conditions that we spoke about, and with, of course, with Kurt's, yep, seal of approval? All in favor?
Kurt's approval on the parking striping?
On the 2 items that Kurt had to review and be okay with.
Make sure that was clear on
Aye.
All in favor?
that.
All right, thanks, guys, yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
We have, you want to ask? Who knows, Dave? The gentleman with the plaid shirt in the back, are you here to pick up an A&R?
Here to drop, I have a revised Mylar that doesn't have a smart stamp on it, so I just need to submit that to you guys for me.
Is he on the schedule? Or, oh, do we want to just take it so we can leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just take it so you can go.
Perfect.
I know we did these from as well.
Oh,
I just wanted to, as soon as I kind of recognize.
This was the Ramsey Road, just the stamps clean on this one, but, yeah, no.
What are you asking for, Zach?
Just the old Mylar that I submitted, the smudge stamp one, the one I got.
Oh.
Or that stamp smudge, I guess, this one, copy of that.
Okay. Do you need to go to sign this?
Oh,
Was this the reduced frontage law?
This was for use frontage, so it's on the agenda tonight for the approval, for the A&R.
That's right,
Oh,
we're
okay.
we're waiting for you to come, right, too.
I thought it was an A&R, so.
Oh,
Well, this one is an A&R, so we've already got approval on
This
that.
one already gets signed?
Oh, we just want to sign it?
no, I don't think we did. We put it, this was the first one?
No, the only one we didn't do was this
no, I
one.
think we
I
did
think we did this
decide.
one.
We did.
Yeah, we got it.
Brookfield Road.
Yeah, this one's already been done.
Yep.
Is it the same one that we had before?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Just clean stamp.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, next week, we want to sign
Just
up
for your
for
records.
Do we have a clean stamp? A clean version?
Zach, hold on a second.
Oh, ours is good. This was, the stamp was just smudged on this one, and
On
you
the
just, you just need another
Just for
copy.
recording stamp, it's the registry that have
So they just
stamp on
want,
it.
so we already approved this one, it just, the stamp was smudged.
Smudged.
So we
Which
just
one
need
will
to
be
sign.
recorded, though?
The one that I just submitted will be the one that will get recorded.
So we
Okay,
need
so
to
why don't we
sign-
sign it?
need to
You can
sign
take it
this
with
one
you.
then, right?
Yeah, you want a signed copy. Okay, we just want to make sure we're doing everything.
Right. That's what I thought.
We can really watch the rates and the difference. The coffee also would be really punch.
Okay, do we want to get copies of that new plan now, or is the old plan?
Like ours is fine, right? It just, the only.
Yeah, the
It's
only-
the exact same plan again.
Yeah.
Just-
Okay.
This is smudged,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's
So
what
you
I
want to take-
I will.
Yeah, if I could take this one, that'd be great.
Report.
maybe.
You can shred this?
This one a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't even want to touch it.
I don't blame you. I didn't want to touch it
Oh,
now.
I need.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, have a great
Have a
night.
great night.
We'll take it out.
Is it Cascade Trends?
Oh, yeah, it's 820.
So we have the preliminary subdivision plan for Brookfield Road.
Anybody good for that?
Brookfield Road, going on?
That's a 0 point back, I guess, do they leave?
Oh, they went back upstairs?
Is that the Brookfield Road?
Yes.
Okay.
So they must have submitted it, so it's just a review of the preliminary, so.
Right, we can,
We didn't look.
before we get into that, I have something that I think might be helpful just to go over. What is
It just
Doesn't
says,
say.
just says Brookfield Road.
the
Review of the
Do you have something on
preliminary
Brookfield Road?
subdivision.
two cul-de-sacs on Brookfield Road?
Nope, not much.
Which is your Brookfield Road?
He's got this one.
You're the one that's at my feet right now.
You must be energy development?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I have a handout on preliminary plans in general. I thought it'd be helpful for the board just to go through this a little bit, so you understand what your role is in this process. So I copied the preliminary plan section from the subdivision regulations. And I just go through this quickly under 3.2.1 general. It says a person before submitting for approval a definitive plan setting forth residential use lots may at his own election submit to the board, the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health for approval a preliminary plan showing the proposed subdivision in a general way. The submission of a preliminary plan, while not herein required, is strongly recommended, except in the simplest case. Such submission affords the applicant the opportunity to have the board review this proposed subdivision before the expenditure of time and money for more detailed engineering. Also, the preliminary plan, as approved, will enable the applicant to ascertain more expeditiously the specifications and requirements of the various town agencies with relation to a subdivision. A person before submitting for approval a definitive plan setting forth industrial park, neighborhood business, community business, or other non-residential lots in whole or in part shall submit a preliminary plan. So I think for the solar projects, for example, if you're doing a subdivision, you need to do the preliminary plan. And then I won't go through this in the detail, but it does describe the contents of the plan, what's required. And then sort of on page 3, it discusses what the board's purpose is, and it says approval, modification, or disapproval. The preliminary plan is submitted will be studied by the planning board to determine whether or not it is in compliance with the design standards of these rules and regulations. Within 45 days after submission, the board shall approve, disapprove, or approve with modifications the preliminary plan, noting thereon its action and any changes which should be made. In case of disapproval, the board shall state in detail its reasons therefor, and then you notify the town clerk, etc. So it's really just an advisory role at this point. There's no public hearing required. There's not a formal, recording of the plan. It's just advisory to the applicant.
It's interesting that correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm just remembering incorrectly, but normally when we get these preliminary, don't we kind of review when it's submitted? So when we were accepting all these preliminary, to kind of, I guess, the grandfather in all the solar and stuff, and I'm a brand spanking new chair, I was kind of wondering why we weren't reviewing them upon receipt. Is that a normal practice? Like, is that?
Well,
You
Or
have
are you
45 days to do that. Right?
Yeah, but normally when we accept it, we do a basic review with the applicant here. We've always done that in the past, just
yeah.
because it's convenient.
Yep.
And yes, the clock is still ticking, and we may have them back or with questions or whatever, but
Mhm.
that's what, and is that okay practice instead of the waiting period, or
Well, I
do you
think
recommend something?
we had them brought before the board for acceptance for purposes of complying with their ability to get a plan
For a
fees from the.
specific reason, but
from
it's
the
a normal
zoning changes.
practice to kind of ask,
Right.
well, okay, I just wanted to.
And then the intent was, as we're doing tonight, to have the meeting to review the plan, have the applicants come in and speak to what they're proposing to do and why. And then on the last page, I have sort of a table which shows the design standards for the various types of roads, and we can use that as a guide to help review the different plans.
Good to go.
So is there anyone here for the Brookfield Road plan? I can go through it with you more than if there's no one else here. So they're proposing two short cul-de-sacs, which create two lots for each plan. So these two lots and these two lots.
That's where they keep the buses.
Right.
Thank you.
So there's this is sort of a downslope going down this way.
It's a
Big
solar
dash.
farm here.
It's a huge
I
dash.
have photos if you
Solar
wanted,
farm.
if you wanted to see them on the TV.
Exactly that.
Okay, go ahead, Paul. So, this is showing the topo and the location of the two cul-de-sacs, and the two lots that are created here show nicely. This one is showing there's an existing house here, which would, I think, remain on its own lot, and then these two new lots would be created here, one smaller lot and then one larger lot. The detail of the road is shown here. From what I could see, there's very good sight distance along Brookfield Road for both of these, so that cars entering and exiting would have plenty of ability to see oncoming traffic, and that oncoming traffic would have enough time to stop if somebody was pulling out. There's a requirement in the subdivision regs, if you look at that last page, it says that the maximum slope of a cul-de-sac is 4%. It's that last line. So you'll notice here, there's a maximum slope of 5.61%, so they're exceeding the slope requirement, so they need a waiver in order to do that. They have a paved width of 28 feet, which is what is required. They have, for a cul-de-sac, there's an outside diameter requirement of 120 feet, and then the right-of-way diameter is 146 feet. It's not shown on the plans here what their diameters are, so I don't know whether they conform or not, so we could have them provide that information. It looks sufficient, but, without the detail on here, I don't know for sure.
Is there a scale?
I have to scale, we could measure if you want to.
Well, I don't know if it's necessary at this point, but preliminary, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary for this project.
And
Yeah,
then-
as far as that, the slope, that's steep back there. I mean, that's a
Very
steep area. How would that cause the drainage and the runoff for the poor people at the bottom of the hill?
This plan shows drainage.
Okay.
So they have curbs, and they have manholes, and then a detention pond here. So they're proposing a controlled drainage system for these streets, this one as well. There's also a sidewalk on one side, which is required, so
Nice.
they're
kids to the
They're
bus.
pretty much building it according to standards, I think, except for the slope requirements. It's the only issue that I can see that they haven't met.
Yeah.
They're doing lots there,
It's two.
or? Two lots?
Creating two lots, right?
Total of 4 lots.
Total four, but
Two for each.
street, each cul-de-sac.
Right. Did you want to see that, Angie?
And have we granted a waiver before on the slope
Funny, I was gonna ask you
for,
that.
for a cul-de-sac? I can't remember doing it, but, I mean,
You might have a,
because this is a slope.
Courtesy.
So we may, so it's, you know, it's not like there's gonna be cars going up and down there all the time.
But you never know.
But we
It's-
never.
Yeah, I mean, if they're making
Timeline.
lots, this could be developed land if they're creating a subdivision.
Well, if
So
we
it's
grant
not
the waiver,
necessarily
it would-
virtual.
the waiver would only be for a solar farm. We could isolate
When do
that.
we ask the question, what's going in here?
Mhm.
Is that now?
Yes.
What's going in here?
I don't know.
We with 0 point, so we have to, I mean, like, common sense says.
Well,
It looks to me like
Isn't
they're breaking it
Am I-
up
or am I
for the
wrong?
solar
Yeah.
to create additional
On
lots,
this
but there
one-
are.
On this one, they have a approved solar anyway, don't they?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they haven't really said what the purpose of it is, but I think we can assume
Yeah,
that
correct.
That's,
would be
I mean, why
Since
would
the
0
solar
point
company
be
is submitting it
involved?
privately.
solar.
Okay, we have one solar on one side of Brookfield Road existing and one solar on the other side of Brookfield Road
Mhm.
already existing, correct?
Yes,
And
there's
this
there's
is
one
going
sort of
in
in the
between
back
those?
down here, and
Right.
there's another one behind, I think in here, isn't it, behind his
Yes.
house?
In the
Yes.
first-
And
in the
this one
first
was already
picture-
approved, the solar plan for this was already approved,
Mhm.
so, and that's on that lot, so they're separating the lots, create 4 lots. And 3 of
This
those
one,
could
they
be
show it
buildable
pretty good
lots.
where everything is.
Yeah, they do.
Correct.
Jean, if you want to, like, on this one, they show it pretty, like, this is just a, you
Right,
know, for your mind to see,
Mhm.
like, where everything kind of is.
right. The other solar field, if this is the parking lot, is up
Yes,
over
it's
here.
back in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And this one would be
It's up in that
someplace
field
right
area.
there.
Here, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just putting this there and that there? This is what they're drawing in? Is
Right,
this the
so they
cul-de-sac?
needed,
Those are the
I
two.
believe they needed to create separate lots for those solar projects.
Okay.
So that's, I think, the purpose of the plan.
But that's only, the solar's only going on 2 lots, and there's 4 there, so there's an existing house on 1, so there is still a buildable or a potentially developable lot in there.
Yeah, I mean, if the applicant were here, they could answer that question. I don't know for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Do we need to make a motion, or we just,
Well, you need to either approve the conditions or deny, so I would assume that there's really no difficulty with the plan, except for a couple of the issues that we raised.
And wait, and
Waivers
if,
for different
if they're
things.
out of, like, you know, if they need waivers, that's something that we would do later on, that,
Correct.
that's
This is
just
just
saying,
preliminary.
because right now we're saying that it looks
Right.
reasonable for the most part, right? That's
Right.
really what we're saying.
Right, yeah.
So with the basic review, it looks
Mhm.
good,
I think
you know.
that's true,
We're
sure.
not gonna send it back and say, do it again, because it may not,
Agreed.
so
Right.
that's, so we just, we just
make a motion to accept it
can approve it,
and
right?
approve it? As long as they get the variance on the sloping.
So, we have a motion?
We do.
Second?
Was there a second?
We need a second.
Oh, recuse.
He's-
Yeah, abstain.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's only 2.
Yeah.
Say there's reasonable.
Ross, did you abstain?
Abstain,
Okay.
yeah.
You never, it's gonna always be like that. Right, we have the review of the preliminary subdivision plan for Masonic Home Road.
Going once. Going twice.
Nobody here.
Okay,
Yeah, I know.
on again. So, this is on Burlingame Road. Town Center is so not too far, maybe half a mile away. The road kind of winds down through here, but at this particular stretch, it's fairly straight where this comes in. The plan is to create another cul-de-sac, 500 feet in length, which is the maximum allowed, to create two lots, Lot 8A and Lot 8B. This is in the village district, so the frontage requirement is 75 feet, so the two lots will conform to zoning. Again, there's an issue with the slope. The profile up here shows a slope of 6.5%, which exceeds 4% allowable for a cul-de-sac. So in the depending plan, they need a waiver or have to conform. The site distance issues, I went out and looked at the site, and there seems to be a good location for the road. It's heavily wooded through here, but it seems the traffic goes slow, kind of a windy road, so at the speed the traffic goes, I think, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but it looks at least reasonable for the site distance. The radius here, I can't tell whether that conforms to the 120-foot diameter radius on the outside. It's showing perhaps a radius of 60 feet there, so maybe that is intended to be 120-foot diameter circle. But it's not clearly shown. It does have a 50-foot right-of-way, and as you can see on the sheet, it needs 60-foot right-of-way, so the right-of-way doesn't conform. The length is fine. So that's about it. You know, it's just a simple cul-de-sac again for two lots. We don't know what the intended use of these parcels are. We assume it's solar, but they haven't committed to anything at this point in time.
This isn't one of the ones that's grandfathered in for this? No.
They do get grandfather protection by filing this plan. They wanted to do, I think, even though the solar passed, the submission of this plan gains them protection.
Oh, when they actually submitted it, okay.
Yes.
So it's submission, not approval. It's submitting the plan, not approving the plan. Grandfathers.
Yes.
They-
As long as it's
That's why we
submitted
get all
before.
those submissions
Right.
before the.
Before town meeting.
Right.
So, it's a very large
The
area.
right of way is
20.
50, not 60, is that,
Right.
What's that?
is that normal, is that? So
It has
that's,
to be, they'll have to come up to it.
So,
They'll have to be changed.
So they will still need to come back with a definitive plan.
Well, that means that-
so even though there's a bunch of, little issues, it's viable as long, they're gonna have to kind of conform,
Right.
unless they get waivers, but conform
Yes.
to the.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It doesn't look that steep. I was surprised that it was 6.5% there, but perhaps as you get further in the road, it's steeper. But I think they could conform to 4% or would make a reasonable accommodation for the 6.5%.
Did you take pictures of this one?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Sure. Sure. I can't move the screen.
you want to leave it?
I can see it from this end.
Well, it's only a matter of time till we get a smart board.
Okay, no problem.
I can't picture in my mind where this is gonna.
Go down, so you can go the elementary school, go down the hill, then it flattens out, you have the power lines that
Oh,
go
down
through.
there.
It's on the right.
I know where you are. Okay, yeah.
I'm like thinking of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I Yes, if there's anything down there.
I'd like to make a motion we approve the preliminary plan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you want to see these photos?
We found now.
What's that?
We found him.
Okay.
One more. Review of preliminary subdivision plan Lunar Meadows on North Sturbridge Road.
Data group is here. Folks, my name is Chris Nolan.
Stephen Borgatti.
We're from the data group, and we are the consultants to Sunpin Solar Development. We have the preliminary plan there. Give a brief description of the project. It's approximately 33 acres in the back. We needed to do a subdivision plan in order to make it a buildable lot. As you can see on the front sheet, this was part of the original lot, but it was insufficient frontage, or insufficiently wide to make it into a road. So this was a parcel that was also with rights to. That is sufficiently wide to make a road. We've made a road in here and a cul-de-sac, and we've made this into two lots. Actually, as we did further research, we realized that we actually want to make that into one lot, and that we could actually make that into one lot instead of two lots. So what we intend to do is submit a definitive plan that shows that as being one lot, the street being one lot, and then one other lot with sufficient frontage. And then there were a number of waivers that we requested from the ordinary standards for subdivisions, based upon the fact that this is not going to be a residential subdivision, that it's going to be a private road. We asked for a number of waivers. You want me to go through what the waivers are? Okay, we asked that the community impact study regarding sewage disposal methods and impact of disposal methods on surface water be waived, because there's going to be no sewage or sewage disposal on the site whatsoever. The normal minor street width is 28 feet. We'd like it to be 18 feet, and we also asked that we be able to make it a gravel street instead of a paved street. And since it would be a gravel street, it wouldn't have curbs, it wouldn't have
Street trees, catch basins.
catch basins. No street lighting would be required, again, because it would be private way. Curbing would not be required, again, for the same reason. Sidewalks, again, it's not public at all. The planting strips, we requested the waiver of the planting strips, again, because it's not an aesthetic, it's not an entry into a subdivision, again, it's going to be private. The trees installed along the sides of the proposed roadway, we've asked that that be waived. Generally, catch basins are required at 400-foot intervals. Again, there's no reason for catch basins on this site. We would have to go through a stormwater management process where we're going to be able to show at the site plan stage or special permit stage, as the case may be. We would have to show at that stage that we have adequate stormwater control, and I think we're prepared to do that. And then last, the water mains, hydrants, valves, and other fittings and sanitary sewers. None of those things would be on site because they're generally not necessary on this kind of a site. So with those waivers, I think we've pretty much we've got a plan that's within the requirements of the subdivision requirements.
So the drive width would still have to meet fire department rules.
You want to speak to that?
Yes, well, we have a program in AutoTurn and AutoCAD that can basically simulate the driving of a truck or any kind of truck or a fire truck in particular. So it's not shown on this plan, but I have run that simulation to show that a fire truck could, with sufficient turning radius, it could drive into the street, it can turn around at the cul-de-sac at the end and then come back around and back onto North Sturbridge Road.
That would all be reviewed before the regular subdivision.
On definitive, by the fire
And the
department.
fire department would
Yeah.
give us their seal of approval once they were happy with what you had.
Went really good.
Yeah, because my two concerns would be the size of the street in case there is an emergency up there, we want to make sure we can get people. And I'm a little concerned about the hydrants, because in the event, I realize there's no houses, but what if there's a fire? And so maybe not as many, but what about requiring one, so that way in case there isn't an electrical fire, there's an emergency. I just want to make sure we're covered.
What do we standardly
Yeah,
do?
that's what I was gonna ask.
Is there public water out there?
No.
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 What is the normal,
Well, the fire department could require a cistern, I suppose.
So it's up to the fire department, that's not even on, we don't, we totally rely on the fire department to tell us what's okay with them, and
The intention is a solar project.
It is, correct.
Yeah.
What is the length of the length?
You know what the river, Steve?
Just
Not off the top of my head.
and that way if it goes subdivision for real, then we
Can you look at, when you get in there with your scale?
but it's on, it's in the notes, and it's in that video, so, I mean, worst case, I mean, we could.
Thank you.
By the way, this is a scenic road,
Yes.
so you'll need to come into the planning board if you're going to alter stone or also tear down trees.
Yes, I might have a note on that plan, but I know in the site plans that I'm planning on having a note that for the gravel road, we might have to adjust it as needed to avoid coming down and plant trees, or actually have to, then we'll get approval from the planning board first.
Is the lot wooded right now, or is it?
Heavily wooded.
Heavily wooded.
Yep.
Is there a number of the lot? Street number, something in between?
I have a parcel number on my, but right on the front of the application, I think the tax,
That's
tax parcel number is.
No, I meant to,
There's a house right
that's what I'm
next to
trying to
this.
find.
This house here has 257. I think it's down here. North Strip.
Oh. Okay.
That makes sense to you?
The light went off.
Okay.
Is this on the side of the North Sturbridge Road? Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Goes down back in there.
There's a right off of Brookfield Road onto
Little
it's on the
A-frame
right-hand
there.
side.
There's a cell tower up here
Up
as
there?
well in the back
Okay.
of
I know
Sturbridge.
that. Okay. I
Could you
have a
explain
lot of
what you're doing for
questions.
the lots again? You mentioned, you had this cul-de-sac on its own lot. That's lot 3.
Cul-de-sac,
Yes.
actually the road, we were under the impression the road had to be its own lot.
What were you proposing to do? You mentioned you're going to eliminate a lot?
Yeah, correct, we actually wanted to make this one lot. So we'll have the frontage here, sufficient frontage, so that we don't have to worry about these setbacks or any of these issues between us.
Okay.
So we would make, this would be one lot,
Okay.
and then this larger piece would be
I
one
see.
lot.
Okay.
These two lots would actually be one, and this one would remain
I
exactly,
see.
or
Okay.
more or less the same.
Okay. Now, have you looked at the site distance here? Because you do have a curve coming around, which is a short distance away, and then it curves again on the other side. There's a requirement that you,
Provides the 40 calculation of the definitive, which actually want to do it. They looked at it quickly and it seems fine, but for that actual physical calculation.
well, I think we would.
show that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
But they're not doing definitive tonight, they're just.
It's
This is
just preliminary.
preliminary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why these are good, because now you know that you should have that ready for the, it shortens up the time. Yeah.
I have questions on, you only want to do an 18-foot wide gravel instead of a regular
Well,
wide?
normally for solar projects, we don't require paved access ways.
I'm thinking a couple and they all are.
Like the Colburn Road project that you approved
Yeah.
tonight was not a paved road either.
Okay,
Because the use is always an occasional, truck
Okay.
for the solar
Yeah, like a
project.
monthly visit or something.
So
like
there's
that.
really no need to do all that pavement
okay.
for just maintenance vehicles.
It also creates a more impervious surface.
Exactly.
I think that with no upside to the creating that impervious surface, then you create a lot of stormwater management issues that didn't necessarily need to be created. And we are close to a wetland here. We're within the outer buffer zone. With the street itself, we are in the outer buffer zone, so we're very anxious about trying to make sure that we can control as much of the runoff as we possibly can.
And you mentioned something, you were looking for a waiver from the surface water? Is that part
I
of
think
it?
stormwater.
Stormwater.
No, they said they would comply with stormwater.
Compliant.
Stormwater management regulations, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But they're talking about drain base, like, they were talking about the sewer piece of it all,
Exactly.
but they're not gonna have any sort of a,
There's no toilet,
any,
so.
yeah, any.
Or manholes,
Alright.
or storm catch
Right, right.
basins, or any sort of, that's not how.
With a gravel road, you won't have much
Right.
runoff on the
Right.
site, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's
So
essentially.
curbing would be used to sort of channel stormwater, so the curbing is sort of superfluous. And again, we expect that this facility will have a gate at the end with a Knox box on it for emergency access, so it would be a private road. And then as you go further in, then the facility itself would be gated as well.
I don't have any other questions.
I'm ready to make a motion to accept it, if there's anything else.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, have a great night.
Tonight, we had the review of the preliminary subdivision plan of the 44 Old Wooster Road. Let me just remind everybody that this is the same deal as we were just going through. This is just a preliminary. It's not a public hearing. It's just a matter of us doing a basic overall, in general review and accepting or not accepting the plan.
Could I just ask a question? Whereabouts is it on North Sturbridge Road? Was it 257?
The
About
closest, the
257.
closest house was 257.
The closest house was 257?
Yes.
I travel with all my
So do I.
times.
There's a sign there, it says for sale, 2.5 acres.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right there,
Thank you.
okay. Little A-frame house.
Yes, gotcha.
My name's Adam Barnowski, I'm counsel for Valley Green Grove.
Mike Novak from Meridian Associates, civil engineering project. Just thought, based on what we've already seen, I'll just give you a quick kind of update synopsis of what we're here for, and let you ask any questions you may have.
Thank you.
For the 44 Old Wooster Road, it's known as Charlton Orchards. Total area of 95 acres, we're proposing a 2-lot subdivision with a small cul-de-sac road located off of, should not be there, no attention to the alternative road, that text, it's actually pointing to the driveway, as you know. So that the cul-de-sac will actually come off of Old Wooster, short cul-de-sac enough to create frontage. Plan that you have may be a little hard to read, so I tried to make it a little better, and I don't think I did a good job. The red line, the red lines are the proposed lots. One, sorry, that's two, and one here. The black line is the existing current lot configuration. Proposed lot 2 will have about 66 acres, proposed lot 1 will have about 29 acres with obviously encompassing some wetlands. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I think we could comply with the grading that's required, as you read earlier, of the cul-de-sac. I don't think there'll be any issues there. I think the lots are in compliance. But we haven't gone through and decided if there'll be any waivers or not at this point. So we're just kind of here to get some input, and if there's any comments, questions, we have to answer them.
Bill, do you want to speak as well?
Well, you know, that's a very windy road, and where that cul-de-sac is proposed, I don't think would meet site distance requirements. So I think that would be a real concern with, kind of
Certainly
don't go
be
that
happy.
fast down the road because it's so windy, but
That's true.
that's a pretty sharp curve in both directions.
Yes.
Sure, so we
So I
could
think that
certainly
would be an issue.
give you some more information on that and show you if it needs to adjust, we'll be happy to adjust it.
Is that cul-de-sac can be used for access in and out of the property, or is that just create frontage?
Right now, it's creating frontage. It certainly could potentially be used for access. I think we're still working that out.
I mean, my main concern right now with this plan is that I am extremely against the idea of this, the access point coming off of Old Wooster. I would have a problem even going forward with that happening there would need to be access off of the Route 20. This-
For the cul-de-sac?
No, but in general, for the access to the property. That's my biggest concern with that.
Oh,
Of
okay.
this whole, just to get that on record I just can't imagine in general, and the more traffic coming off of that road, that's a tough road to have any.
Exactly.
To just want that, straightforward, to know that that's my major issue with the overall plan.
Okay.
Now, I do have a question. To address visibility, the way that property works is there's that sharp corner, but the Orchards owns all the bottom. So if they were to make it a little bit sharper,
When you
so.
say the bottom, you mean here?
Exactly. So if you were to straighten it out a little bit and basically cut the road a little bit sooner and clear it a little bit, you could probably come onto Old Wooster at a better spot than it's coming in
Kind
now.
of turn this way, is that what you're saying?
I think that would make it worse.
Yeah, I'm not sure which direction you're going, that's all. I just
No,
want-
the way it comes around right now, and it comes down at almost the
this.
worst possible point because you don't have a lot of visibility on either
Oh,
side.
sure, yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
Mr. Scanlon was saying in terms of sight distance.
Exactly.
Certainly take a look at that.
Thank you.
Go through ASHTO and decide on whether or not that's a good location or if it needs to adjust. Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question of, because right now there is an approved solar facility on that parcel, right?
No, I don't know anything about the solar farm or
Isn't there an approved
potential.
solar farm that this board
Didn't-
approved
didn't-
2 years
didn't
ago?
we have
And,
a,
so your lot lines don't have any kind of, the 2 lots you created, they don't have any kind of
Bearing from the solar?
bearing,
No.
correct?
My firm did not
Gotcha.
work
I
on
know,
the
I know,
solar
I'm
project.
absolutely.
I don't think the solar project has anything to do with where we are now.
Okay.
In this
All right.
situation. So I
Okay,
think
because
that's
the only
easiest
reason
way
why,
to say it.
the only reason why I mentioned it is the engineering firm that permitted that, correct me if I'm wrong on my memory, but I thought that they had emergency access onto Route 20.
I thought they were trying to get one
Yeah.
because it's a state highway. so
Yeah,
they
that's a
have
state
to-
highway, so it requires state permit. They
Gotcha.
may have
They were
proposed
trying-
it.
You don't know if you
Yes.
got it or not? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, the state, you can say yes, but the state
No,
can
oh,
say
no,
no.
absolutely, yeah, they're
But
the
the
dealers.
solar farm, whatever previously was
Okay,
approved,
gotcha.
has no bearing
That's all- the
on
only thing I was
where we
wondering
are
about
now
that.
and
All right.
as far as I know,
Thank
where
you.
we're
Bill,
going.
does that have to be kind of taken back or withdrawn from us if there's an approved plan on the table on the same property, or do we have to do anything about that? I just want to make sure, like,
Well,
everything.
it would have been a site plan that you would have approved for a solar project.
Correct.
So
We did.
that's,
Still active.
if they still want to go forward with that, they have that plan in place.
So they can just let it go, they don't have to withdraw it or anything?
No,
or-
no.
They've asked for continuances year after year after year.
Is there a definitive date that decision expires?
They have 2 years to build it, but the board will approve an extension
With the
if they
extensions
request
requested.
it.
When the last extension was?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, I'll certainly try to find out.
Okay.
When we come back.
I wasn't
try
here
to
at the
square it
time,
away.
so I don't.
That's
know,
fair.
but we probably have a file on it.
I'm sure you do.
No, it's not. Well, it is and it isn't. When we look back at this, it's not.
So what?
So there was a subdivision plan previous to this?
No, no subdivision plan that I'm
Not
aware
a
of.
subdivision, there was an approved plan for solar that
But it
was
wasn't-
approved all the way to that,
Correct.
like,
Right.
they
They
could,
just
they
submitted,
could
we
build
said
it
okay,
right
correct.
now, they could,
Okay.
so I just wanted to,
Yeah.
technically, does that have to be withdrawn or the same piece of property? I just want to make sure that we're doing things.
If they modify the lots, we'd have to make sure that the solar project conforms to the
The
zoning
setbacks.
requirements for the new lots.
Yeah.
But other than that, if they had all the issues taken care of in terms of access and buffering, et cetera, that could go forward.
Well, in our next round, when we come back to see you, we'll try to have as much of that squared away
Can
in
you-
terms of plans and what.
Can you explain why Lot 1 is so oddly shaped, why it's sort of narrow along the road and snakes around
Yeah,
in order to get up to the back part of the property or the front part of the property, however you look at it? Seems like it's a tough lot to really use that way.
Agreed.
Would you
It was
propose a
requested to
driveway?
be put that way by the client.
So would you anticipate a driveway going all the way from the cul-de-sac up to the buildable portion of the lot?
Well, I mean, in theory, this portion here is buildable. So it
Okay.
could, in theory, come right off to a side entry garage and be developed right in this area. The rest of it remains open space. So I think.
Yeah, that portion along Route 20 on the left is on community business. And I believe the intent is to.
That's it here.
No, it's on the other side.
On the other side.
It's on
But not the whole
here.
lot, at least.
Yes.
at least-
Yeah, no,
So,
Understood.
so that part, if we're gonna do any retail for marijuana, that would be the only place it could go. Would be up there. But that would be very difficult access from the cul-de-sac to get up to it.
Yeah,
So-
if we're talking about that, I would agree with you.
Right.
But we're talking about a residential.
We are.
Yeah, so
Well-
I think house-wise, we could.
But we don't really,
Put something in there without. any major
for a
issues.
residential
Yeah.
lot, it could, but then that would make the rest of that parcel unusable. For one person.
It's a risk.
Right.
An understood risk.
Are you proposing that would be paved?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you have?
Build,
you have
build per your standards.
Drainage?
Yes.
Okay. Sidewalk?
Sidewalk may be a waiver that we would consider,
Mhm.
because
For 2 lots, you probably.
I'm going by
would-
memory too. Is there any connection to be made out there on Wooster Road for sidewalk?
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think about 150 feet of sidewalk isn't really a great jumping off point, so
Right.
that may be something we would consider.
Right, that's right.
I can't answer for sure.
And what is the grade of that cul-de-sac?
I believe we meet your standard of 4% or less. Yeah, I think we're right
No, I
at it.
think it's 10%.
This is 10%?
If you have
Well, we
the
did-
profile.
No, I do actually have the profile.
So I looked at that today and I think it exceeds. Because that goes up a rather steep hill.
It does. Proposed grading on the revision to meet your standard. Close to 4%.
Okay, that's different than.
So
what
that's
we
different,
have.
than- that's different than the
Yeah,
existing
this
grade
says
now.
10% on.
That says 10% on that version.
10% here for this section here.
Okay,
Yeah,
right,
but
it
the
still
cul-
shows.
but the
it
cul-de-sac
shows
itself, I
10%,
believe
yeah.
your bylaw release due to the cul-de-sac is 4%, correct?
Uh,
Unless I misinterpreted, which
well,
has happened in the past.
I could have too, but I think it calls for,
So you're saying where the subdivision sits is 4%?
The cul-de-sac itself.
I keep seeing, yeah, I
oh, I
apologize.
see.
Yeah,
what
that's,
you're saying.
yeah. And again, if that's the
10% grade to get
interpretation
to
we'd
it.
like to, we can talk about that. I'd be happy to
Okay, so,
figure it out and come
so
to
your interpretation of the
the cul-de-sac
the
itself.
regulations, the cul-de-sac
Yeah.
referring just to the
The
turnaround,
law
not to the
itself.
entire road.
Correct.
I see, okay. Because it does slope steeply off at that 10% grade.
Yes.
Even for a short distance. And I think there's a standard for having a leveling area at the base of the road, which.
Yeah, I'm not sure a truck, one of the fire trucks.
Is that, I don't
could
know
make
whether,
that.
could you
We
see
need to
whether?
work on that.
Okay, good. Is there any reason why that road is so short?
No? We could get one.
So you could lengthen the road in order to meet the
Honest
slope
answer?
the
Yeah,
slope
you get one.
standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's probably, in response to that comment, it's probably what
So
we'll
it looks like what you're trying to do here is the bare minimum to get this.
That's what I was asked to do.
I'm not quite sure you meet the bare minimum, but.
So, the red line designates the two different lots? You're saying there's 2 lots?
But there's 2 lots, correct. Lot through here, and then we picked up the stone wall and ran through. and come
So
back
that's
around.
all one?
That's one. And then the second lot does the same thing, and then the orchard does not own this
Right.
parcel here. So
Right.
it comes around, and that's why this parcel is back up to the road through the cul-de-sac.
Would that existing driveway, which is Alternative Road,
Yes.
remain, or?
Not sure. Depending on where the roadway ends up.
What is it, is it a driveway or a road?
That's probably a question for you, not me.
Well,
Elkiner Road is a legal road, and there's one house on it that Benjamin's the one.
Okay, so
But it's a private road, it's not a public.
It's correct,
It's
but
not
it's
a
a
town
recorded
road.
road, is what I meant to say.
It's a
Sorry.
private way.
Private, yeah, it's definitely private, I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay. Okay.
Doesn't meet your definition of a road, that's not up to me.
No, I didn't mean, I just meant, what was your intent to do with it? To keep it in place or to?
Well, based on some of the comments in here, it's probably gonna be used.
If it's so short and stocky, what if we have one like super long driveway after that? Right, so my question is, so we have the little cul-de-sac, and it's that short little stocky thing. What are you gonna have one driveway coming off of that? And is that gonna work with the length of the, to get wherever?
I'll be honest, the design isn't that far along, to tell you that. I mean, based on the comments for the cul-de-sac that I've heard, the cul-de-sac's probably gonna get a little longer, and therefore, if we go through definitive, we'll extend the cul-de-sac, and that'll probably answer that question.
I mean, only when we get a subdivision plan, we're gonna, like even the preliminary, we have an idea, like if you're gonna build a house up, the house is up there, we're gonna have a note with a lot line so we can kind of see how long the driveways are gonna be. And like looking at the length of the driveway to get to wherever you are going with that driveway, is that gonna work out with?
I mean, that's a good question. Mike, you're suggesting this is a residential subdivision plan that you're presenting tonight?
Yes.
So you would anticipate 2 houses, 1 on each lot?
Well, in the preliminary stage.
Okay. Any comment? So, okay.
But again, we are preliminary.
Mhm.
Things are still
Okay.
moving and happening.
Mhm.
That's why there isn't houses, there isn't driveways, we're in the preliminary stages. Wanted to get the input of the board, didn't know if there's any input from
Right.
town
Sure.
officials, fire, so on and so forth. And the idea would be to move forward.
Mhm.
If we wanted to do a deep preliminary, be happy to bring that to you and address some of these immediate concerns, talk about the solar field, get that
Mhm.
kind of up to speed, understanding how that fits into this or does not fit into this.
Mhm.
And then if the board felt as though that was the more acceptable plan, move to definitive. Not looking to necessarily tell you we can move to definitive right now, but we're flexible, we're willing to listen,
Okay.
work with something that everyone can be comfortable with.
We appreciate that, thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair, I do have a question. So, okay, if you're coming to us with preliminaries, which this is, and 2 house lots, obviously the one, no, okay, could be, I was gonna say the one house lot you couldn't get to off this street, but you can, by the way that you have broken it out. If there were to be any more than 2 houses, I would suggest looking at access to it from Route 20.
Okay.
And I also would like to get cleared up about the solar thing, that we do have a
Yes,
plan.
I have that written down.
And, you know, how does that fit in with this? Is one gonna go away and the other one gonna supersede, or what, you know? I don't know if we can actually have 2 plans for the same parcel with 2 different ideas on it.
Sure, be happy to try to figure
Okay.
that out, that's more a little bit his world than mine, but I
Okay.
think we can put our heads together and come back to you and give you a clear understanding of where that stands and how we
Okay.
anticipate moving forward with that or without that.
I feel like we're so in the dark with this. Even with our preliminary, where we can in our mind say, oh, there's a driveway, there's a house somewhere gonna be here, there's,
Sure.
and
Big
and we
robot.
kinda, this is, it's just really unclear for us to kind of accept something that is so incredibly vague. We get it, we get it, but.
Madam Chairman, may I address that a little bit?
Yes.
I think, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this, because he said I could. This subdivision, although attempted to meet your general, by every means necessary, attempted to meet your general, I forget exactly, but the general concept of subdivision or so on. I'm not getting the wording right, and I apologize. Was done in the anticipation of doing this for zoning freeze. This is something that I do a lot of this. My background is residential development. My firm, I've done plenty of subdivisions, and people who are very savvy in land development, if they know a town meeting is coming and they can't see the bylaws and they don't know what's going to happen, they'll ask us to do this just so they know what they're working with. I actually did this on the last subdivision that I worked on that's under construction right now. We did it because there was concern that they were going to change some definitions of basement heights, and it would have really affected where we could put these houses in relation to groundwater. So the current definition we could work with and work well with. So we did a preliminary subdivision, then we froze the zone. The subdivision from preliminary to definitive changed immensely. Constant back and forth with the planning board, very typical, very wide open process. But the preliminary subdivision was just that, preliminary, simple, but enough to freeze the zone, to allow us to know what we're working with. Full disclosure. That's where we're at. So it sounds like we're being a little vague with where the houses are going to. We just never. We didn't go that far, but we can. Be happy to give you a little more peace of mind and realize that we have a preliminary subdivision, or we could move to a definitive. Happy to bring that in front of the board. And that's what I'm here tonight to find out. What would make you more comfortable? What would you like to see?
So Bill, could this be rejected just on the fact that the location for this cul-de-sac is not on a good spot on the road? It doesn't meet the minimum requirements of a cul-de-sac. Size,
It's
location,
extremely
term.
vague.
There's not a lot of information there, but other than that, it's preliminary. But even the preliminary doesn't meet the basic standards of what's necessary for approval.
Another question through the chair, and forgive me, you've been very forthcoming, so I'm going to be, allow me to be a little blunt. This project is one of the most widely publicized projects in town. It has been over every newspaper. Everybody knows what's actually going in. So what is the actual purpose of doing the subdivision plan? What are we doing tonight? And do you actually intend to put houses up there?
Well, I don't intend to put what the owner and the applicant decide to ultimately do. I don't have a lot of control of. The plan is, I think, what's known.
Okay.
And I don't think that has changed. Whether, if that went away and houses could still go here, I mean, certainly we could, I'll speak to what I can do. I can make a subdivision happen on this plan, on this property. That's
enough land for that.
yeah, I'm comfortable with my ability that I can do that. But the plan is the plan, I think, as much as you know.
Okay.
Yes, will be the next step, most likely, which is site plan review with this board.
Yes.
But I came in here tonight to talk about the subdivision, and I don't say that argumentatively.
No, not at all.
And I'm trying to give you as much as I can
Absolutely.
with what I have.
Sure.
Be willing to give you as much as you want, but at some point, this is preliminary.
Right.
My understanding is preliminaries, your bylaw is a little different than most, but preliminaries don't generally get approved. They get kind of, yes, go to definitive, or no, we'd like you to change it before you go to definitive. And I understand Mr. Clay's point of, does this even meet or not? That's a different discussion, but you know, I came in here with the intent of understanding, is this enough that if we decided to go to definitive with this concept, or a revised one with a better road, better location, so on and so forth. That's what I'm here tonight to do.
Okay.
When we come to you in a different manner, we'll be just as open as we can, as we are now. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I appreciate that, and I wasn't trying to be rude to you
Nope,
either.
didn't take it rude at all.
No, as a chair, I'd really like another preliminary. This is kind of
Be happy to.
this is just
You'd like a little more meat.
a little more,
That's fair.
it kind of scares me to say, good to go when I have no clue. I have a clue over here, but no clue, you know, put it down and.
Right, again, but my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, even if you say you're good to go, all you're telling me to do is do the
No,
plan.
submit,
Just go
right.
definitive. I can't go put a shovel in the ground.
Right.
But I understand your point.
But if
And
the
I-
board denies approval, then they're saying, don't come back with this plan for the definitive, because they wouldn't
Right,
accept it.
exactly,
They want
and that's how I'll
to
take it.
do a
that we-
redesign.
that we would come back with a better preliminary, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you would like us to continue and come back with a revised, more in-depth preliminary, I have no
That would be
problem,
fabulous.
no
And then
issue with that
And then we
whatsoever.
could have more questions about the details versus
Sure.
general, you know, just.
I have a question for Adam. Our council has told us that in order to maintain that zoning freeze protection, you must follow up a preliminary plan within 7 months with a definitive plan. So the clock has started to tick. You need to come in with your definitive plan within 7 months of the
Sure.
date of submission. Is that your understanding as well, that preliminary plan alone does not guarantee the protection? It's the definitive plan that's followed up that gets the protection. Is that your understanding?
It's my understanding that I would rely on your counsel.
Okay.
You know, as far as how he's advising you on that.
Okay.
But I mean, the plan is, as Mike said, is, and I think that there's been some really, positive and informative comments that we could probably,
Yeah.
that certainly, I mean, I don't think any of the comments that have been made today are things that we can't work with and come back and
No,
try to,
absolutely
Just
not.
asking
further-
for reasonable, for
Yeah.
just something
Absolutely.
reasonable.
Absolutely, nothing has been unreasonable.
I get it, you're on the agenda,
Yeah.
and you gotta give something, but we
We're
just
here.
want something a little bit.
That's right. Be happy to give it to you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And we understand that there is a time. Yes,
Okay.
we're well aware.
So your client's willing to pay for you to prepare the definitive plan, which can be costly.
Well, I think you'd have to do another preliminary first.
First.
That would be helpful, I think.
Yes.
Not
Right.
necessary.
Unless
Not
we
necessary,
vote to
but
accept this one, we'd be required another preliminary.
We don't require a preliminary, it's optional, correct?
For residential, it is, yes.
For commercial, it is not.
Go ahead.
But I think with
These
the
are
comments I've heard, our plan that we just already said is fine. I think that's the way we should go.
Okay.
And I don't think he has a choice, from what I've heard
Right.
tonight. And that's what he'll hear.
Good.
So do we have a motion?
I think we should approve it with the condition that they make it a lot more specific. So I wouldn't, would you deny out of hand?
Could we continue it to bring in a revised plan based on the comments?
Well, we only have 45 days, I don't know what.
But once we continue.
We just don't know we can get you on the agenda where like stopped. I mean, if you,
I think
honestly, we.
Oh, no, I think we'd be willing to be flexible with the action date
Mhm.
to allow
Sure.
us to kind of do this.
I mean, I'm hearing the board isn't really happy with this plan at all.
Yeah, I'd rather not accept it.
Okay.
And then have a new one and start over fresh. Is that
You have
is that possible?
Sure, you
or
can do that.
is-
You're right.
Do we have any?
Well,
do
how's
we have
that work timeline?
That's what I was gonna ask. next.
Well, Mike's aware of the timeline,
It
it
would
says he
reset.
can come in with another preliminary,
Okay.
and then the definitive within a 7-month window.
A 7-month window of this one?
No,
Or
of the
of
date of
Original.
submission.
Or the new preliminary?
No, the date of submission of the first preliminary plan. So you accepted it at a
No,
previous meeting.
I don't know. That's
So
a
that
good question.
starts the clock.
Excuse us.
That was when.
I think procedurally what would happen is we would have a continued to have a revised version of this plan, which is normally what's done.
Revised preliminary.
Revised preliminary, so
Yes.
it wouldn't be starting the process over, it would simply be
Correct.
continuing to
No, it
revise.
wouldn't be
as-
starting it
as-
over.
as
The
course-
clock is ticking.
The clock is
That's
ticking,
right.
yes, yes.
Right.
Because you
Yes.
did need to submit it prior to the zoning change, which you did.
Right.
So we're not gonna consider this.
But your 45 days of action doesn't start until I give you the plan. Is that correct?
Well, it's 45 days from the date of submission of what the planning board has.
Yes, of the submission of the revised one.
So if we
Is
reject
that what-
this,
I think I misunderstood the
if
question. so
we
I'm
don't
gonna
accept this and we say, do it again,
Mhm.
what is the timeline from that?
Doesn't that restart the clock?
It doesn't really restart the
No.
clock, no, the clock is still ticking.
We're still under the gun. We've already started the clock.
Right.
You've
Okay.
got 45 days from when this was
you
submitted.
can't keep
5
submitting
days is 7
plans
months.
in order to
45
extend
days.
the
45
timeline
days
now.
is your
Oh,
action.
You have to come in
You
with
have
a
to set it.
definitive plan
Yeah, we
within
have-
7
So what
months.
is your recommendation, does that make sense to not accept it and just have a I mean,
Well,
or
I
is this?
I think you presented a lot of good reasons why this is not a plan that you would want to see go forward. And so therefore, by denying it, it's requiring the applicant to rethink the approach.
And how much time would you need to redo it?
Oh, that's well, on the spot, I mean,
And, you know, legally, they don't even need to do another preliminary plan. You can deny it, and then they can come in with a completely different definitive plan if that was their choice.
Okay.
But Mike is saying they're willing to work with the
That's- yeah,
board by
that's-
coming in with another preliminary to
And
get your
if,
feedback.
just, if, the timeline only kind of helps us figure, you know,
Sure.
give you advice about our
do you?
kind of
I know
timeline too.
Boards meetings in July and August get a little sketchy, so is there a
What
meeting that
meeting?
would make sense for us to
So
shoot for?
We have 2 meetings in July,
Yeah,
but
we have
how,
the second.
how busy are they?
You have the list.
I think the schedule's off though, because it has July 4th as a meeting, you know.
July 11th is not that busy, but you requested not to add any other items to that
I
one.
have all of it.
That's
Thank
7
you.
months.
What about July 18th?
No.
I'm sorry?
July 18th?
July 18th, so I would have to be submitting when's the submittal date?
July 11th.
What's the date of the
Or get a little
planning
bit
board
of
meeting?
that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Jane, are we good there?
We're just looking at the agendas, we have.
So go by the date of our meeting.
Right, so.
No,
right,
never mind.
do it.
You got it,
I
okay,
got it.
I've got the draft.
So I think May 2nd then would be.
The July,
that we started
I mean,
on
we
the
didn't,
So we've got 45 days from that.
we didn't
Yeah.
want to add anything else to the July 11th, because that was our, we usually only have 1 meeting in the summer, and we added another meeting because we're so busy. However, the July 18th one is pretty swamped.
Okay.
How does the board feel about adding it to the July 11th one? Will you be prepared for July 11th? if we-
July 11th would be a submittal date of.
July 4th. Yeah.
Yikes, no. I'm good, but I'm not that good.
So that puts you to August 8th.
No, we have one on the 18th as well.
Yeah,
But
but
we're saying
we're,
it's
like,
full.
it's full to the,
And we have a couple of people that are gonna be for what meeting, the 18th?
18th, I won't be here.
18th, 18th.
oh, will we have quorum on the 18th?
Yeah, you'll have quorum. No, yeah, 3.
Only, I mean, if the,
Okay, July 4th.
We
No.
should make it, we can make it.
So would you take the day first, the third of that?
Okay.
Then you have to take the day before.
Oh, there's a holiday. Yeah, we're not
Don't you have to take it the day after?
The day before, sure.
This isn't a hearing.
No.
So you don't, is notice an issue?
No,
You just, so that's just.
right,
Okay, so it's just a week prior, basically?
yes, I would say so.
Well, if you can't do the 18th, then the 11th is the only one that if you have any room, I guess I don't have a choice. So, it is. And we said the submittal will be the day before.
July 3rd.
Yep, July 3rd, right.
unless we want to bump up to August, right?
Yeah, unless you want to go to August,
Unless you want to go to that August meeting.
August 8th.
We get yelled at. What August date is that?
August 8th, this middle of August 1st.
Yeah, there's no way. I won't be allowed back in the building. Like I said, so.
So I guess you'll have a busy next week.
Late night it is, yeah.
So you got 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah. No, I
To do
appreciate
something,
the
right.
flexibility that you're allowing here, so I'm gonna take what you're giving.
Okay, thank you.
That was the 11th, correct?
Okay, do we need to vote on this, or do we just give it back?
You have to vote to deny it, and then,
Vote to approve it and say no?
No. I make a motion that we vote to disapprove it.
Second.
all in favor?
Well, I appreciate
That was very clear.
your openness and honesty.
So you
Thank
got
you.
feedback.
See you on the
Glad I got the
11th.
feedback I needed.
CAD program recommendation.
Some people aren't gonna be happy with
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry.
That's okay, I didn't want to be on the camera.
It was pretty, the date, 45.
If you take it even to May 2nd.
That's June 17th.
We're done with this.
Now we need energy development. Yep.
We still have to do extensions and.
We have the energy development A&R.
Yeah.
Yep, he's waiting. Yeah. I'm just putting that in.
thank you, like simple.
This is the Hammond Hill, no, this is.
Energy
The
development.
Energy Development Group LLC on Brookfield
Yeah.
Road.
So as I understand it, this A&R was largely submitted just because we had to clarify some of the border lines. That's pretty much the background I have, is that we had to send out our civil engineer to survey this back edge and such. And then it had to be resubmitted.
So the lot lines were questioned and now they're
Yes.
Clearly
certified.
defined.
They're-
And unfortunately, that's about as much as I know.
So this is just a survey of existing lot
Mhm.
dimensions?
Mhm.
Okay.
And as I understand, you guys have already seen it in a preliminary, and that this is just a finalization piece.
Okay.
And you looked at this and everything,
Well, they're not really doing any
yeah, they're
division
not
of
making
land.
any changes or anything,
You
they
know,
just,
it's a surveyor
it
plan,
has
so
this stamp and
there's
everything.
really nothing that I can comment on.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve A&R? A second? Second? Questions?
Yeah, wait a minute, we have the We need a second?
Yeah, we need a second because he's abstaining.
Just one?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Other side of the coin, I guess. Thanks, guys.
Be like your finish, but it's simple.
Well, I was sitting here and I was just, subdivision separations. The only thing I really had to worry about is
That one too is still on 61. That one in from 61.
I don't recall, yeah.
But that was part of the approval.
Yes.
So it needed to be, that
And I apologize, is there any documentation that I need to take with me tonight?
We had to take this one, right?
Can take the Mylar.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we can be registered.
See, I wasn't sure.
I take it to the
Sign it
registry
and
of
then
deeds.
we'll-
Great, on that one. I
Great.
think it is.
We can't vote on it. I'm sorry, sign it.
I wouldn't sign it.
Yeah, but I'll go this way.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
great.
And do you have another one that needs signing? Can I have something?
Yeah, okay. So that one's good, you can take that one, right, and these are ours. The hardest part was waiting.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, but I'm sometimes. Thanks so much.
That's it.
Okay, just
Yep.
this one? Great.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Have a
See you
great night.
soon.
Okay.
We have the admin stuff, right, all the extensions. and-
Yep, I got it right here for you. Want to start with this?
There you go.
No.
Am I ready?
Yes. You're right, this is the letter from
A letter from Richard Vincent from 47 Casey Road, Charlton Planning Board. Dear Planning Board, please accept this letter as a request for renewal of our special permit for
process, right?
Okay.
reduced
this one
frontage
here.
lot. If you have any questions or need further information, please do not hesitate to contact us. Do we know, what is the dates on this? To extend it to, okay, I'm sorry, right in front of my face. We would like an extension to July 22nd, 2019.
Let's make a motion, we approve that extension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
From Ryan Ryan Shea. Good afternoon. This email is in regards to the Ponican Hill subdivision approval expiring July 8th, 2018. I would like to request an extension to July 8th, 2019. Thank you, Ryan Shea.
So moved. I make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
From the Kozowski Brothers Contracting, I would like to request from the Town of Charlton Planning Board, an extension for the Lambs Farm Estate subdivision plan. Thank you, Kenneth Kozowski.
I make a motion to
Hold on,
accept.
extension to
Sorry.
July 20th, 2019.
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's me, I forget the date. Hi Jane, I'm writing you to request that Larry McKissick's permit for Griffin Road please be extended. Thank you, Frank, from Frank Bucieri. They're looking for an extension to July 14th, 2019.
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is the letter for the 61 East for Brookfield Road. Should I read this whole thing, or what should, Bill, do you summarize this?
It's the letter from Mr. Kritzy.
Yes.
Right, he is initiating the process of removing the neutral property from 61A. So he has submitted this to the selectmen and the assessors, planning board and others in town as part of the town's policy. So they want to remove the land from the chapter in order to go ahead and build their solar farm. So this triggers the right of first refusal of the town to buy the property, and they would have to pay their back taxes. That these taxes are calculated based on how much they've been forgiven over time.
Now, our job is, because there's that right of first refusal, is to recommend whether we think that the town should act on that, or.
Yes. So do you have any desire to
Is there
try
any
to
specific
acquire that
desire
property?
of the board that thinks that we should, advise the select board to act, or?
Unless we can put a fire building on top of that hill, I don't think it's.
I don't know, it might be a better spot, I don't know, I mean.
I'd like to make a motion that we not exercise our right of first refusal on the
Second.
village property.
All in favor?
Aye.
We did that.
We did that.
Blanket. Just, Bill has the decommissioning bond.
Now, how is that decommission bond calculated?
It's calculated by the engineer. Their engineer calculates it, and then our engineer reviews it to make sure that the calculation is reasonable.
Okay,
Correct. I have those calculations here if you'd like to see them.
curious.
For the Brookfield Road, there's a detailed spreadsheet that the engineer prepares based on the cost of removing and then the salvage value of the existing components. So this site has an amount of $51,320 to remove the solar project, and
that was reviewed by Mike, and he's.
yes, so Mike reviewed the engineer's calculations, as you pointed out, and approved them. The other one was $63,715. And we received these decommissioning plans, which there's a page on the towards the back for you to sign so that you can approve these. I reviewed both of these, and they're both fine to me. I think that they are good plans. And what will then happen is they will submit actual bonds to the treasurer as security that the town will hold should it ever come to pass. The town needs to remove those projects.
Okay.
And Joanne Savignac has reviewed that as well, and she's prepared to approve them when they come in. So
Disposal and removal of the panels, is that on here, or is that?
It
just-
is.
just Caddying is hazardous material, so I just want to make sure that the town is covered for that.
How does that account for inflation? So 10 years from now.
They have,
No,
it gets
it
recalculated with
doesn't-
the cost, I know that they
Okay.
recalculate, so the amounts.
Beautiful, okay,
Recycling of
that's all.
equipment, removal equipment pads. I see removal of recycled piles, removal and recycling rafting tables. I see. Those are-
You know, remember with the,
That's a sort of
Power?
receiving fencing.
the amount goes up a little bit.
I don't see anything this is
Yeah,
for
I apologize.
removal of the panels themselves, or recycling of the panels themselves, or disposal of the panels themselves.
Solar modules, remove modules, $9,437.
But that's just for
Removing
labor?
the panels.
Removing the panels.
Sorry. Well, this one here.
This one does have it.
Solar modules removed.
Okay, removable modules. That's removal, that's hourly rate, but is that disposal of too? Removing is one thing, but I'm just questioning whether, there's a large cost with recycling those panels and the hazardous waste within them. And I see everything seems to be all labor, but there's no cost associated with actually recycling or disposing of that material. And since the landfills can't put it.
Something to ask Mike about, but because this is really one of his expertises,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've relied on him for years and years and years to calculate that for
Disposable
me.
recycle,
I have a
okay.
lot of trust in
But
Mike
there's no
myself.
category over here
But
that
it's certainly a
matches.
question that we can ask Mike next time we, you know.
Dismantle, decommission, question disposal.
But I'm sure, it's not like he comes up with the cost, there's all these,
sure
there's all this software and all these best practices, and I'm
Oh,
sure he
sure.
uses that, you know, when he recalculates, so I have, but we can certainly ask him for more details to satisfy your curiosity.
This is the first one I've seen, so I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, no, great question, because it could have been missed. Is there a line item that says decommissioning of?
Mhm.
Maybe that's what that is.
No, it's explained in here, but
It
I'm not
seems like
seeing
it's
a
all
line
labor
item.
cost is mostly what I'm seeing here. I would have to have somebody else take a look at that because it is late. Mission loan. Some loans, direct estimates, cuts up what exhibit A. Established value.
Wouldn't be in a site cleanup with like
It's possible that
labor and
that
dumpsters,
could be
because.
the salvage
That could be.
value that they intend to.
Yeah, you know, I
get.
just
Remove
from
and
my reading of this, yeah,
recycle
that's
vacuum
possible.
tablets, remove and recycle piles.
There you go.
I mean, remove modules.
Remove and recycle.
I mean, remove and recycle.
But it looks like that's all labor if you look at that. I don't know if there's a cost associated with that. There may not be. I mean, it may be.
It's a great question to ask Mike, he would know.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
And his calculation might be totally different, like he could come up with, he could have another whole plan, and if their amount is reasonable, then the amount is reasonable. He might throw the size.
I mean, I think he's assuming that there's salvage value. If you look, you know, there's the gray columns are negative numbers, so that means that they're able to obtain
Correct.
value from removing those components. And
Right, and maybe they are recycled into other components, and there's
People would
actually a
pay,
street
but
value for them.
there's probably valuable material.
Good question,
I'd be curious
we have it in our
to-
notes to ask
Yeah, I'll ask
Mike, we
Mike
can
that.
actually, we can shoot him an email and see what he.
Little education.
Okay, then we need motions to approve these plans and have the board sign them.
I'll make a motion to accept the Osgood Road Decommissioning Bond Plan.
Second?
And then the second one.
So one's Brookfield Road.
Yes, I will also make a motion to do that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass those down for signatures. Second to last page.
Just, Ross abstains for this.
And then there's this,
This is Osgood, and this is Brookfield.
no, this is Osgood and Brookfield.
So there's So is this the one?
They're two separate projects.
But why does this say Os, 5 Osgood and 0? And that 0 should not be 0, it should be 75.
That's the one on the
No,
hill.
that's a different one.
That's
This
well
is the McDougal.
From the ones,
These
the
are both
most
from
recent
the
ones
initial
we
property.
just approved for
Yeah.
those. The access ways through.
Like the two processes.
Oh,
Osgood
because
Road.
it's being built on two properties. That's right, there were
Yeah.
two distinct
Yeah.
properties for that, okay.
There were two separate,
Oh, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah.
right? Because they,
They should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Who's gonna sign you?
I can, would you like to sign it? You go ahead. I can't.
I'll catch it on the return. Don't worry.
Is there just one copy of each?
one copy
Yeah.
of each, right?
We'll get you on the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want these dated, Bill?
No, it's just
Yes.
one is already.
You pass that back to Jeannie, she hasn't signed it.
We'll have one on the 11th.
There's a thing for paranoia about always putting the wrong date on that. Like, I've never done it, but
I feel the same way when I do
someone
mortgages.
did it one
I
time.
have to.
Oh, yeah, I tripled
Two.
the,
Two boys?
you messed
Yep.
something like that up?
Years
So,
ago,
yeah, one-
years ago,
Uh,
someone
good.
had to redo it.
Some of them. Very close.
It was with the old timers.
Yeah.
When we were all like there.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, and you, at one point you had, oh, what's his name?
Tom Reed.
That's what I was trying to think of, because I was thinking of Dick Kovacs' daughter. Yeah.
Homes.
Yeah.
Good old days, good old days. Looks like a little kid.
Yeah.
Feels like, okay, honey.
Mhm.
Okay, Bill, do you have anything for us? A new growth management?
No.
Have we grown enough? We've grown enough?
Please, no minutes.
You want to talk about the planning director? Is there any information
Oh,
on that?
yes.
Here's no resumes, no? No.
Speaking of, so we had an EDC meeting, and Robin wanted me to let you all know that it was never decided to combine the positions, that it is a planning board position and an EDC position, and that the EDC position is simply being zero funded at this point, and they are going to hold off on hiring an EDC person, and so it's strictly planning board.
Which is very interesting because technically the approved budget, the typed out and approved at town meeting budget says planning board director / EDC director right on it. So
I was on it.
So the town approved it.
So the town approved it technically, and everybody can interpret it any way they want, I guess, but technically, I guess if we had an attorney down, that was the budget that was approved, and whether it was a typo or not, it is what it is, and we go forward. But honestly, it doesn't really.
I don't think it really matters. I was told to
yeah, it
re-review
does.
Rob's motion when I pushed back on it a little bit, not in an argumentative way, but just out of curiosity, because I thought it was combined.
And we did fund the director position, but the director is the EDC director also, which is fine as a technicality if they don't want
Correct.
our planner to attend their EDC meetings to provide guidance, more for us. Whatever floats everybody's boats, but we offered.
The agendas include a spot for the planning director to update the EDC on plans.
Yes, Robin and I did have a conversation, and I did say, I get all the technicality, but to keep everybody on the same page, that we would, I'm sure, and I said I was sure that our board would be more than willing, and we had talked about it, that as part of the role, they would attend, we would allot a monthly meeting, and if they don't, you guys don't even honestly always meet every month, but to allot that time to attend, to keep everybody in the same, right in the same page, but we'll go from there. I don't think it's a big deal.
The only big deal is they want the job posting changed, so it's only a planning director. I said I would bring that to the planning board. I did not see that would be an issue, because again, we're not losing
That's fine.
anything, so.
Right, we were offering it out of the kindness of our hearts because we are such a kind board, but, we'll go from that. I mean, technically, if we ever wanted to, we pull out the original budget, but we don't, I mean, as of right now, we just want a great planner to advise us, and we don't need any more stress on our plates. Let's stay with what we have, and
And once we look at the candidates and see if they qualify for that and have the ability, then maybe that's another discussion at a
Correct.
future point.
So I just wanted to put that on record, that I told her I would bring that to the board.
thank you.
But we have no applications at this point.
Because.
So it's kind of,
Mute
it's a moot point, yeah.
Obviously, we haven't advertised well, what a fun
That's-
place that this town hall is to
Well,
actually
the
work.
next question I was gonna have is through,
Truly.
is it the personnel director's responsibility to make sure that's advertised in the appropriate spots?
It was also
HR.
advised that we talked to Jess about where she's posting it and maybe broaden it out to some
That's-
planning sites where it might attract more
Some
attention.
more planning sites or some more general
Right.
monster.com,
Exactly.
Indeed, and
Yep.
kind of
Correct.
spread it out a little bit.
Absolutely.
And or send
Doesn't-
direct mail, every single planner in the state, well,
It did,
the
yes.
towns that we
Like,
admire,
yes.
right?
It wouldn't hurt to throw a bigger net.
Correct. And that was the idea, is that a lot of these planners will travel because that's just how the job works.
Yep, and who's gonna bring that to HR to, or Jessica to, that be you?
I don't know if we could actually, I mean,
To,
we really can't send a letter to, I guess I personally.
You can
could
send
go
an
and stop
email
in
just
visit.
asking her
Could
to.
you-
Yeah, we will. Well, will you send her an email that the board discussed, that we just wanted to double check that it's advertised on the correct places, with,
Yeah, see where she's advertising and maybe suggest some other sites as
or
opposed
ask her
to.
where specifically, that would be the.
Honestly, I looked for it and I found a few other towns, but I found nothing from Shelton. There are
Because the
towns
last-
out there that I could find, yes.
We don't want it, no newspapers, we want it in planning
For-
publications.
Exactly.
For where?
Planning websites.
Yes.
You just-
Look at planning.org,
Okay.
so.
Because I don't want it to seem like we're questioning her, I just want to maybe
Yeah,
give her a
just-
suggestion.
There's a local American Planning Association chapter, and then there's other state chapters, and there's a national chapter. So they could all go in, I'll get copies of them posted.
That's perfect.
So Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, for example.
Can we just share, Bill, could you just send an email?
Sure.
If you, I mean, I'm sure you
You know the sites better than
you
we do.
actually know probably who to send it to, just so the
Okay.
word is
Thank you.
out there.
I'll give it some thoughts.
And I will,
Does
since
anybody
I'm
know
in
if it's
towns all the time,
advertised
I
on
will pop into
Charlton's?
town halls and.
It's on Charlton
Promote our
webpage.
business.
It is on Charlton.
Sure.
So if we send out an email to anybody, we can say, please refer to
Okay.
the Charlton.
Sure.
Just make it a whole bunch easier.
It's on the Charlton webpage.
And make sure it only says planning director, not planning director and EDC director.
So that needs to be updated.
It is. It is, it's already done. She got the final, and we made the decision, at least in our correspondence, to just, whatever. Plan director, it is what it is. It doesn't make a difference. Just want to get somebody, and we'll talk about the details when they're perfect. Again, if you have any close friends, relatives that work up, talk this up. I mean, we'll celebrate their birthday and stuff, and we'll be as good and nice as we can.
Motion to adjourn? Yes, second.
All in favor?
Aye.